I guess. All right. Time being later than 6:30, 6:48 p.m., I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, September 11th meeting of the Tilton Planning Board. First on the agenda is the review of the June 26th and July 10th, 2018 minutes. And if it's okay with the rest of the members, I'd probably like to move that to the end of the meeting. I said, if it's okay with the rest of the members, I'd like to move the review of the minutes to the end of the meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on to your calendar. Next on the agenda is Planning Board Case 18-09, continuation of site plan review. Proposal from Mark Bourgeois. Is that Mr. Bourgeois? Is it Bourgeois?
Yes.
Okay, Mark Bourgeois, to expand the existing MB tractor business to include additional outdoor equipment storage areas and associated stormwater management controls at 10 Bittern Lane in the Regional Commercial District, R24/4. And we have a request from the applicant to move that to, hold on, our meeting of October 9th, 2018.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I guess I would need to find a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to continue planning board case 18-09 to October 9th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have a question, Dari. Did we hit the 65 days with that?
I think we probably have. I think in that case it's evident that the applicant has been requesting the continuations all along, so I don't think we have to worry about being forced into a decision on that.
Okay.
That's fine. We'll wait a decision.
Okay, I just want to make sure we cover our bases. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll see you on October 9th for that case. Next on the agenda, Planning Board Case 18-10, let me try that again. Planning Board Case 18-10, conditional use permit, wetlands, and continuation of site plan review. Proposal from Mark Bourgeois to expand the existing MB tractor business to include a new cold storage building and outdoor equipment storage areas at 18 Bittern Lane in the Regional Commercial District, map R24/5. And I guess we just, so what we're looking at tonight is, oh, okay.
So we just go and.
Yeah, we're looking at looking for possible two approvals tonight.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah.
The first thing I think you guys will want to look at under this case is a change of use review form submitted by the applicant.
Is that in our packet?
It is. It's a letter with McLean Middleton letterhead dated August 23rd.
August 23rd, I got that in front of me. All right.
I can help you guide you through some of this if it's a little bit confusing. I know it was for me when I.
Yeah. Give it a whirl. Let me just, does anybody need to review this?
Well.
I just want to read this. Do we need to read this into the record, Dari, or?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
We just review it, but we don't need to accept it, right?
True.
So we just.
Just take a couple minutes to review this letter. I did review the letter, but I wasn't planning on being here tonight, so I removed it from my memory.
I try to do that for a lot of things.
Right, listening. I talked about salt today. All right, 1501, the case that he refers in this letter, that was the original plan for that property, just.
Right,
Okay.
the sports complex, the indoor inflatable sports complex.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
No, I'm just making sure everyone's read,
Yep.
had a chance to review. I just have two quick questions. Are you attorney
Swiniarski, yes.
Swiniarski, oh, I wasn't even close. I was going Swiniarski.
Swiniarski.
Swiniarski, I'll mispronounce
Just
it.
call me Chris.
Good. I like to be a little more formal, I'm sorry.
Steve, if you want, doesn't matter.
Whatever it is, just don't call me late for dinner, right? And then just another, when you say cold storage, is that, I think of refrigeration, and I'm sorry if that's, is that just a
The
lingo?
idea of cold storage is that the building's not going to have HVAC.
Okay.
It's just the storage.
So in the summertime, it could be hot storage, in a way.
It will likely be pretty hot.
Okay,
so-
when I hear cold storage, I think of a refrigeration factory.
I actually thought the same before I had done something like this before.
All right, I just wanted to make sure.
I do that.
Well, I'm slow and unshaped. All right, so I guess the first thing we have to look at is a response to the Keach letter. No?
Well, you could. I mean, however, I think you have a relatively narrow issue in front of you at this exact moment, which is, does this need site plan review? That's what they're asking. They're
Yeah.
saying, all right, yes, we've turned in the site plan review application, but, you know, upon looking at this, there's 2016 approval, and the applicant is proposing that, you know, that they're asking the planning board if it actually does need site plan review. So that's I think the first question. If you do need to look at materials to make that decision, including any Keach letters, that may be, but I'm not sure you do. I don't know.
Well,
So, all right, so I guess we have two issues before the board this evening. We have, one is a conditional use permit for the wetlands, and then whether or not this needs a site plan review based on the stuff.
That's not exactly right.
Well,
There is a site plan review application before the board and a conditional use permit application before the board. How this transpired to be, as everyone knows, there is an approved site plan from 2016 for this property, somewhat similar to what we're doing, except what we're proposing to do is to reduce all of the impacts of that. Now, our proposal meets all of the criteria for what is dubbed in this package as projects not subject to any site plan review. However, in consultation with the town attorney, I agree with the town attorney's idea that the town needs a record of this, a site plan on record, and there needs to be a correction to the decision that was made in 2016, which I think doesn't follow the current bylaw, the current ordinance rather. So in order to make that easier for the town, even though we have the right to build that 2016 site plan, we submitted a site plan application so that the town could have an accurate record in its file, as the town attorney suggested would be advisable for the town, and the conditional use permit application as well to properly document permission to do work within the 100-foot wetland buffer. So the criteria here really should be the project's not subject to any site plan review criteria and whether or not we meet that criteria or not. And I was not involved in this until somewhat recently, and after a public records request when I started reviewing the materials, it seemed to be like this was being reviewed as something brand new and a brand new proposal. I know the Conservation Commission actually asked that question more than once, and the Conservation Commission did not understand the context of the proposal that's before you. So it's not quite as simple as it may seem, but the decision can be much simpler, I think.
Well, let's see.
all right, so just to clarify that, we're supposed to look at this criteria and see if it fits. And we need to cipher and read this specifically, proposals that involve a change in use, but does not include, and there's a list. And
Yes.
see if it fits in there. And do you have any, obviously we've discussed this, but do you have any comment on this?
Yeah, and that's why we submitted the site plan application, because it gives all the detail, but we can run through these very quickly because they are actually pretty simple.
You don't
So the
mind?
first one is changes in traffic flow. We have not changed the traffic flow at all. There is a change in traffic volume. It's a drastic reduction in traffic volume. What was proposed was, I don't remember what Tilton called it. In my town, we call it a sportsplex. It's an indoor sports facility,
Yeah.
open to the public, lots of traffic. And this is storage. For the most part, not even open to the public at all. It's accessory to the business use right in front of it, a 10-bidder lane. So clearly that criteria is met and even exceeded. I guess we just covered the second criteria too. We don't have an increase in traffic generation. We have a very dramatic decrease in traffic generation. Very similarly, the third criteria, an increase in parking demand. There's no increase in parking demand because it's not open to the public. Nobody's coming to park at this site at all. Changes to drainage, there have been none. There have been some improvements to the impacts in the wetlands from what was approved, but the drainage is the same drainage. An increase in demand or changes in water, sewer, or other utilities. Again, on the contrary. This proposal has one sink and one toilet. That's it, to be in this warehouse. I don't recall exactly what the sports complex had, but it was more than one sink and one toilet, for sure. Changes in fuel storage, there's no fuel storage here. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, no fuel storage.
No fuel storage, that's what I thought, we want to make sure. And again, changes in hazardous material storage and changes to the outside layout and use of the site. So there's no hazardous material storage here. Changes to the outside layout of the site, it's the same except it's a reduction, it's smaller. So we do meet these criteria, and that's why I was a little bit perplexed as to why this is being evaluated as something completely new, when really what we're doing, and what Mark did when he bought the property, was look at this and say, it has an approved site plan. He relied on that in paying what he paid for it, and then we decided we could actually reduce those impacts and do something that's simply a little bit less. These graphics give you an idea of the difference. So I'll show you all of them at once, but this is what's approved, 2016. This board, maybe not these board members, but this board approved. This is the impact to the wetlands shown in green. This is what we're proposing as far as work within the wetlands buffer. Sorry, not just the wetlands. This is an overlay of the two. This is us. All of this, including what we're doing, was approved already. It's very plain to see. This is a reduction. I'll
Yeah.
use the magic hand.
I mean,
So the green is where it was previously approved, on the,
Yeah.
and then the red is where you were just going to be disturbed. Okay.
Right, the green and red is where it was previously approved, and the red is all we're proposing.
Gotcha.
Except the previous site plan was based on the 20-foot buffer of the wetlands. Now we've discovered there's a 100-foot buffer of the wetlands, and the proposal for this development is within that 100-foot buffer. There is a change in traffic flow because currently there's no development on the site. So it's going
We have a
from-
vested right to build what was approved in 2016.
But you're not building what was approved in 2016.
Well, we can.
In my conversations to the planning board, thank you. So,
We're trying to make sure the record is accurate,
so,
true information.
so, there's nothing on this site, there's no development. So there's definitely a
There
change in
actually is
traffic.
development.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be able to speak without being interrupted.
Can we allow to?
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
There is no traffic flow because the site is not developed. There may be a site plan on it, but there is going to be traffic. There's going to be larger trucks delivering equipment to it, which is not from the previous site plan. That's completely different. In fact, New Hampshire DOT expressed his concerns about the turning radius again that are in lane from Route 3 because of the size of the trucks delivering that equipment. There's an increase in traffic generation, and it's not going to be different. Like, I'm not sure why both of those are in there because they kind of say the same thing, and it's heavier. So there's a heavier weight of vehicle coming down on the town's road, and the selectmen haven't weighed in on if there's going to be any changes made to the town's road for this development because of these heavy trucks. Changes in drainage. There is a big difference in the drainage from the other site to this site. That's,
How so?
Yeah.
well, the other building was larger, and that drainage was designed for that building. I don't remember the parking lot configuration for it, but I believe there were curbs in it, were there not, to channel that? And I don't believe there are in this. And I may be wrong, like I said, it's been a while since we site planned it. But it's different. It's completely different from the Tilton Sports Center.
But is it not, the footprint is drastically smaller?
Excuse me?
I mean, it seems that, after reading all this, the footprint of the impact of the building and the building itself and the disturbance is a lot less, it seems.
Well, it seems less because back then we were guided by the 20-foot buffer. Well, we were wrong. It's a 100-foot buffer. Now, the property is still undeveloped, so now we have to deal with that 100-foot buffer as it pertains to a site plan on this property, not a 20-foot. So that in itself would mean that it should be site planned. Because you can't, the old site plan was based on, I'm repeating myself, on a 20-foot buffer. Well, that's not what there is. It's a 100-foot buffer.
So why are we looking for that now, though, at this point?
Because we sent it out to our third-party review, to our engineer, who discovered our mistake that we've been making.
Ah.
And we have gotten in the past guidance from an attorney that when you make a mistake, municipality-wise, it was very similar before, when you are made aware of that, you go forward and correct it. So
How does that fit into this rubric, if you will, of, is not in this list? So, really. Doesn't say anything about
well,
buffer
everything that
changes.
requires site plan is in this list. This is a guide that land use uses. It's like a test. It's not
Right.
etched in stone. A
Maybe
lot of the
it should be
criteria for
that.
site plan is in your site plan regulations.
So this site plan review form doesn't really match up. It's just like
It's a guide
it's a
for
guide,
land
but
use.
it's not.
It's not all of the criteria for site plan.
So we really,
It's a guide.
which one is more important then?
I'd say our site plan ordinance regulation.
All right. So this is out of date.
Okay.
I have two questions. What you're saying, do we need a new site plan review? And from what I see, I'm not sure why we need a new site plan review if in fact you've reduced everything and the only thing that you brought up, Catherine, is the increased weight of what will be going in and out per vehicle. I mean, certainly the amount of traffic going in and out is greatly reduced. You're just saying the weight of the trucks that go in
So
will,
it says here changes in traffic flow. Well, right now, nothing is going on that property.
should be, I'm aware of that. Before, we were dealing with probably 500 cars if there was a sports event going in and out.
And you don't
Now we're
think-
probably dealing with 2 trucks going in and out, you know, in a week's time or whatever. I mean, I'm just pulling those numbers from the air.
And you just described the change in traffic flow.
Yes, but I don't see that has a less of an impact than the sports center had. And I believe in terms of the amount of the buffer, is it 60% now?
It's not a percentage. It
Well,
was
60 feet, I'm
24
sorry.
60 is
60
what
feet,
we're
that's what I,
proposing.
as opposed to, I know that it was a mistake, it should have been 100. Initially, you were going to change, that you were going to take care of the 20 feet, now you're taking care of 60 feet, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And I guess I don't see that as requiring another site plan.
Well, there's no site plan in place that requires them to do that. If they're going according to the old site plan, which was based on a 20-foot buffer, there's nothing in that site plan that requires them to stay under the 100-foot buffer. It hasn't been site planned for a 100-foot buffer.
Exactly right.
How does,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We can go right up to 20 feet. We are requesting to do something better.
up to 60 feet?
Different, exactly. I think there was actually a discussion at the Conservation Commission, even though they didn't understand all of the context of this application, about meeting in the middle. 60 is the exact middle.
Exactly.
But without site plan review, what requires them to hold to that?
Well, and so that is why we proposed a new site plan as the town council suggested, so that there would be
The
a
record could be
record of
straight.
what is approved. So it needs an approval as a formality, and as you mentioned, errors and mistakes should be corrected, and that is exactly why we proposed it, so that the town could correct the error. And that is the sole reason we advanced a conditional use permit application, so that the error could be corrected. We have the right to do this without correcting any errors. We don't want to do that. We want to do something better.
And I don't believe they have the right to do whatever they want on
I
that
understand.
property.
It's not whatever we want. We have the right to do whatever is on the 2016 approved site plan.
And a 100-foot buffer is not.
Right. So, sorry, so when we previously approved the site plan for this,
Yeah,
we approved the 20-foot buffer,
yeah.
when in fact, we should have approved a 100-foot buffer.
Yes, and
Which, if things had progressed to where they are today, we would have to live with that mistake.
I think that, I mean, there's some debate there. Like, you know,
But
there's
if
a
the-
wetland scientist stamp on these plans, and there were a wetland scientist stamp on the 2016 plans. I mean, we can't take all the blame for this. You know, we were relying on what was presented by a wetland scientist. So, I mean, but
I'm not-
yeah.
when I say mistake, I mean, there was-
Set that aside, yes.
So,
What you're saying is-
if that project had come to fruition, and let's just say it was approved in 2016, and it
Yeah.
was built in 2017, and these folks were not before us, and all of a sudden we discovered that, oh, wait a minute, we should have had a 100-foot buffer,
Mhm.
what would be the correction, if any?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think there's probably a variety of ways we could go. Again, we could probably say, look, you're a wetland scientist.
And now you gotta cut out, you gotta cut out.
Said that it was a 20-foot buffer. They're the one who's supposed to be identifying wetlands features and wetlands buffers, assumedly. So, I mean, I'm not sure what we would do there. You know, maybe a thought is if the purpose of this is to get a site plan that accurately depicts what's on the site, why not just do it? I mean, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot whether you do it. I mean, if you said, yes, we're not gonna require site plan review, but we need a site plan, that's kind of like requiring site plan review. So, I mean, in a way, why not just move to site plan review and address the issues with the knowledge that, yeah, the applicant is clearly, you know, sort of attempting to work with the board and meet in the middle on certain aspects that they weren't aware of when the property was acquired. So,
Excuse me. At first it said, we had an approved site plan that was approved, you know, for whatever reason, exercising the typical 20-foot buffer of a wetland. That was what I bought. That's why the land was valuable. That's why it was worth what it was to me. And because all the engineering costs had already been spent and done, this was a nice package for me to buy. I bought it knowing that this is turnkey piece of property, you know, to get it developed, get some alleviation for our space and make this work for my business. I probably spent over $60,000 with engineers already and probably another 10 or 20 lawyers this year on a project that was already approved. It cost me a ton of money to re-educate and re-explain things to everybody, it takes time, all of us, every time we meet and do all that. So what we did now is we have a plan that was with that buffer in place. We didn't do it, we don't know, we bought it the way it was. Now, if something was done and they forgot that Isles Pond had 100 versus 20, or for some reason someone decided to allow it then, I don't know. But it's not beyond the typical allowance of what's allowed for the buffer, it's what it was for that particular parcel then. But what we've done anyways, in the way we're doing now, is that we're not even exercising the full amount that they were going into that 100-foot buffer. Ours is less. Like they're saying, less impact in every way. So we had the right to exactly build what was there. I have the plans, I own and approve. I could have built that and impacted it worse. You guys realize that there was somewhat either an error or some reason, however it happened, you don't know. So you asked us as a favor, can you do an application for a CUP so we can get this and correct it in our books and make it proper and close the books on it? So in a way we did as a favor to do this. Now I'm fighting to get approved for something I did as a favor for you guys because you want to clean up your mistakes. And it's cost me more time and more money. I don't get it. I mean, and the weight of a truck is not, you're going to have hundreds of cars going to a soccer. That's just fetching for reasons to give you a hard time. I've had it.
So their engineers and not scientists should have seen that.
Well, someone's wetland scientists and engineers, but,
Nobody, there were two of them, and they didn't catch it.
No one's going beyond the typical wetlands buffer. That's the issue. This Ice Pond has something that's different, which is why you guys maybe missed it or didn't catch it, because for some reason it was a different wetlands buffer there. But otherwise, nothing is being done against the law that's typically approved. All we're doing is doing what you guys asked for. It was kind of like, please submit the CUP so we can do the proper channels, get it done, get it approved so you can do your project. Now I'm fighting to do something I did for a favor for you guys to clean up your thing. We don't really want to make this any bigger than it is. This needs to be cleaned up and exercised the way it was presented to me when we did this. And this isn't good. Like you said, what would have happened if years ago this happened, something came up, they would have sued you. If you guys approved the plan, they spent money, they built it all, and you said you'd tear it down, they would have sued you for all the costs because you approved it, it was stamped, it was a town meeting, they said it was done. I bought it under those same conditions. No one wants to go there. This needs to be corrected and move forward.
I don't think we should get in too much of a debate about whose fault it is, because if we
Doesn't matter.
wind up there, we're going to wind up saying that we were relying on statements from the applicant's, consultants that were false. So I mean, I would recommend that we not spend time on that, and then we make a decision here whether if this is going to be handled by waiving site plan review or by moving to the next item on the agenda and addressing the site plan review application that you have before you. That is, well along its way.
And I think I have a solution that works with that, and it goes along with what you were just saying, Dari. The reason for the site plan that we've submitted is, as Mark was saying, as Dari was saying, as I was saying, to correct the record. The town needs to have a site plan of what is on the property. I get that. The issue here is we don't need to be working through site plan issues, because on these criteria, we have the right to do this. Now, I'm not saying forget it, say yes, and let's all go home, but we need to realize this criteria is in play and approve the site plan that is before you in the CUP, because those are advanced to correct the record. They're not up for the typical horse trading and negotiation that usually goes with most site plan review in every other place I've been. I've never done it in Tilton, so I don't know. But that's what we're saying. The site plan and the CUP should be a formality because we don't need them under these criteria. But the town needs them for proper records, and we get that, and we've gone out of our way, as Mark said, to put that together, and we've even made a few concessions here and there. This doesn't need to be long and drawn out. We're doing the right thing here to correct the records, and we need to just move it forward.
They don't have the authority to go forward with the original site plan because they cannot build within the 100-foot buffer. If they truly want to work with us on that 100-foot buffer, the only way to do that is through a site plan process.
That's an absolute incorrect statement of law, and your counsel will tell you that.
well, let's keep this to what we have before us. Read it in the middle.
I mean, I say just move forward with it.
I say the same.
Well,
They've met us in the middle, and
well, one thing that on any future site plan would have to be, I don't know what the right word, verbiage, I guess, is that this plan supersedes previous site plan.
Yeah.
That I know has to be on that. There's,
You can ask yourself, why did you ask me to file for a conditional use permit? That's a good question. Maybe Darren, you can help him answer that. I don't know.
I think because that was actually proposed through a discussion between Novus and I, where once the third-party review engineer identified
No,
the,
the board agreed also.
what's that?
The board agreed also about that. They thought it was a good way to solve the problem.
That's my recollection, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. When we've had legal counsel before on difficult decisions, it's been, if you're not quite sure, err on the side of the applicant. And we made these mistakes, and we're getting some concessions, and we've spent a lot of time on this.
How are you getting those concessions? They're not in any site plan.
Well, they will be.
Or the site plan. But how can they
Yeah.
get in a site plan if you don't site plan?
Well, do you think they're gonna go back on that, or it's in
There's nothing
writing?
binding them to it. We've already heard that they feel that the original site plan, they can build that.
Right.
Even though our engineer, found it's a 100-foot buffer. So they believe that they can build within the 100-foot buffer.
Can we listen?
Maybe the board would just like to ask the applicant or his attorney, that exact question, or how are we proposing on a technical level, detailed level, to potentially, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but potentially waive requirement for further site plan review, but also be sure that the town is going to obtain some record that reflects the changes. If the board wishes to ask him, maybe that would contribute to the dialogue.
well, I was kind of thinking of that similar question
Okay.
of this. How do we? I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. So, which is a common thing. How do we guarantee that this 60-foot buffer is
Right.
is
I've got the answer.
kept to?
I know the question.
Well, I figured you would because your name is on this letter. So how do we? Like usually, if we have a traditional site plan review, we would have a condition that would be part of that review.
Yeah,
And I've been on this board for 6 years. I've never had a situation like this. So this is why I'm at a.
I know, as I said in the beginning, it's unique because there's a previous approval. So the way to get around that is that the plan that we proposed as the site plan, in our site plan application, simply gets approved. That becomes the plan of record. Your idea to state on that plan, and we can get to a revision of that effect, saying that it supersedes the previous approval, we're amenable to that. We can take that right off the table because we don't want to do that. That's exactly how it's done. That was the whole point of all of this, and I apologize if I haven't made that clear, but that's how we correct the record. We take previous erroneous site plan, we take better site plan, approve better site plan, stamp it, done, with a condition that previous site plan is superseded and gone.
And this is the new site plan.
So we approve the site plan.
You have the new site plan, this is just one example of what's going on. You actually
How do you
have,
approve the site plan without having a site plan?
And if I
but you
may,
have a site plan in the
Well,
next matter.
it's just the only issue, and this is just a technical matter, is
Right.
that planning boards are only enabled to conduct certain processes, and I don't see that a planning board is enabled to accept a site plan outside of a site plan review process. That's the only thing, and I know it's kind of a pain in the neck, but technicality, but it's
That's
something I think
fine.
we have
So-
to address.
So that's easy.
Okay.
All the board has to do, you can adjourn this matter, for the moment, move to the next matter where you have a site plan,
Okay.
approve that site plan for the formality, and it's done. That's what we've been saying. Yes, you can do that,
Well,
because we have the legal right to build what was there. We've gone through this and we've started over with the horse trading on a site plan, and we don't have to do that. We are doing the town a huge favor here. We're trying to be nice about it. It's a matter of, to formalize it for the town's record, you approve the plan that we proposed. We already provided every single detail. You have a site plan in your next matter. That simply needs to be approved. Same applies for the conditional use permit. These are formalities to correct the town's record. These are not new proposals.
I suggest we take the advice of our town planner, move forward with the site plan on this and get it done. Shouldn't be a complicated matter.
So that's fine.
They're
Just
already
table this and
saying
move to
to
the
us-
site plan.
To a site plan review process.
Chairman Pyra, it sounds like everyone in the room is.
So let's
ready to
move
go
forward
in
with
that
it as,
direction,
since, no, before anyone changes their mind. So, how do I phrase this, or how do we phrase this as a,
As
yeah.
a- I'm
I
saying
think
as
you
a
could
site
just
plan
table, you
review.
could table this matter and go right on to site plan review.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just do
'cause
that.
that's
all
what
right,
we-
so I guess
Make a
we,
motion to table the matter.
Second?
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to decline to vote.
Decline to vote. Let the record reflect that, please.
Okay.
I figured that's what you were gonna say, so I said it for you. All right, so I guess we're going on to, I have no idea.
Well, now it's case 1810, continuation of.
Site plan review.
And conditional use permit, let's
And
not
conditional
forget that,
permit.
yeah.
All right. So hi, welcome.
Hi,
How are you?
for the moment, I'm just a plant.
And what's your name?
But, I'm sorry, I'm Naomi Prawl with Novus Engineering.
Naomi,
It's P-R-A-U-L, the last name.
P-A-R-U-L?
P-R-A-U-L.
Paul.
So these are the plans that have been submitted to the board already, I think reviewed. There were some questions from Conservation Commission, which I submitted answers to, but again, Conservation Commission did not.
August 31st?
Yeah, there were some, so as you'll see in some of the answers to the questions from your engineer, there were some technical things that they wanted revisions on, so we just did those on a new plan. It sounds like we would probably need a new one anyway to include that condition that you mentioned, Mr. Chair. And we can answer any specific questions that the board has. But this would be the official site plan. So this would guarantee that all of these changes we've told you we're making as reductions are in fact requirements, because this would be the approved site plan.
Okay, so, for the record, then, we'll discuss the buffer particulars. I'll let you, it says here, dramatic reduction in impact to wetland buffer from 20 feet as currently approved to 60 feet, which is precisely meeting in the middle as proposed at conservation, at the Conservation Commission meeting. So let's just get that one done.
Sure. Naomi, do you want to walk through details on the plan? So, the first thing would be showing them where the 60-foot distance is.
Can I use that hand?
Yeah.
That hand? Sorry.
I unfortunately can't see both.
What's facing them?
Plans are upside down.
I know.
Yeah, it's all right. It's in the copy.
Tough to get good staple help these days.
So I know it's important to crane your necks and try to look at the one that's behind you. So the plan that's in front of you is the same one that's up on the screen right now. And I'll just highlight the dashed line that was on the color plans we had previously represented the 100-foot buffer. That line is shown on this plan. It's not in the color blue, but that's this line here.
The dash line?
It's the dash line, right along the top
Thank you.
there. So this shows you the limit of that. This is an edge of pavement line, and then there is a boulder slope that goes down basically to where this dark line is. So that represents the area that we were looking at previously on the color plans, showing the 60 feet roughly. I also have the, I don't know if we want to keep talking about the previously approved plan, but just to highlight some of the things that are similar, really. We have drainage controls in the same 2 locations that were originally approved. The configurations have changed ever so slightly. This very dark dashed line around the perimeter of the development represents the previously approved limits of disturbed area. So you can see that we're pretty much within the confines of that, except for a little corner here where we've gone beyond it, but we've also reduced a little bit. So it is an overall reduction in disturbed area. As far as the stormwater, I know there maybe were some questions, it sounded like, pertaining to the size of the building and the size of the impervious. We do have less impervious cover, and so when we look at a stormwater design, we're looking at the overall impervious cover that's contributing to stormwater controls, be that pavement or building roof. So this building is smaller than the originally proposed building. The area of impervious is also smaller slightly, but we would look at that as a whole, at least with this design. I know there also maybe was a question about some curbing. We have looked at this. There is no curbing proposed now on the site. What we've done instead to direct stormwater is we have a swale along the perimeter that directs stormwater to the pond here. And then there's a swale on the other side that directs stormwater to this pond. At the edge of the pavement here, where it would appear to go over, it actually doesn't, because this edge of pavement is tipped up. So there's a trough line that directs the stormwater into that pond rather than going over the stone.
Question. On the left side, there's a driveway entrance.
Yeah.
So how are you going to get that water to direct to that pond over there going across that
So
driveway?
that water never went there
Okay.
under any
Is it
design.
looking like there's a swale right there or something?
This is a catch basin at the
Okay.
end of a swale, and there's a high point here.
Okay.
So anything from this point on is just going to do. a
No, but
depth.
I guess it'll go into that storm drain then into the
Right.
retention pond?
Right, so there's a pipe underneath
Okay.
that connects to the pond, exactly.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there are other specific questions on the technical details of the plan. Anything here you want to ask about? I'd be happy to speak to it.
I'm sorry, as I'm stapling my plan, where is the 100-foot?
The 100-foot is this dash line here.
Not where it is, okay. Got it, thank you.
I happen to know offhand how many square feet the wetland area is.
The actual wetland of the
Yeah, the
pond?
actual wetland. What is
I don't.
technically wetland? Okay.
I don't.
Because I was just reading about a 10,000 square foot limit.
Right, and I think that's the reason that this came up.
Yeah,
when,
it's like slightly over.
Yeah, so I think if it had been a smaller area, it would have had the 20-foot buffer, but because of the size of Ice
okay.
House Pond as a wetland,
Right.
it resulted in a 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
But I unfortunately don't have that exact number.
Okay.
Which is another option, of course. We can always reduce the size of the pond by changing the dam. No, we can. I mean, we've spoken to folks about it, and we're willing to do that. So. What we're doing here is way better, but there are options. You know, this doesn't need to be a big production. We're doing a good thing.
Any other questions from the board?
So the suggestion is that we allow
I did.
this to take place within the wetland buffer.
Oh, I did. You didn't have it.
As a
Remember
compromise,
taking
yes.
And in part through approving the conditional use permit, potentially approving the conditional use.
But none of this is allowed in the wetland. I would like to know what the plan is to restore the wetlands buffer.
There's been no disturbance of the wetlands buffer that hasn't been restored. There were weeds there that were mowed, and as I understand it, that was done under the previous approval, and they've all grown back. Other than, of course,
Yeah.
the detention ponds.
I think there was a lot of confusion I saw in the questions from the Conservation Commission, about trees and shrubs and all that. So there is no, just to be clear, disturbance in the buffer,
Aside from where the ponds are going, these are,
right.
one pond is a wet pond designed to be, essentially do the job of infiltration.
Mhm.
And then the other detention pond obviously isn't going to grow back, that's going to be a pond. Everything else is already growing back.
Right.
There are
Okay.
trees growing within that 100-foot buffer.
There were none.
You can look at the maps before. The Conservation Commission will tell you there were. I walked that site even before Lowe's went in.
Oh, that may be.
And there were trees growing there. I walked the site when Talahauser was there with Talahauser.
But not now. There's no trees now.
There's not now. They've been removed by the current property owner.
No, actually, the work had started under the previously approved plan.
It's really hard to have a conversation with the planning board when people interrupt.
Board needs an accurate record.
Well, it is confusing.
Let's let her finish her statement, please.
Yeah. Go ahead.
As I said, I've seen trees there. The Conservation Commission was out there when it was first mowed down, and there were tree stumps within the 100-foot buffer.
But we can't, so at some time in the past, there were trees. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that when the current property owner denuded the property all the way to the pond, there were trees within the 100-foot buffer that were removed. To say that that was all weeds is almost ludicrous, because if you go back a couple, like last year, before it was denuded, and look to see what was growing there, from Google Maps, you can see what
Where
was
the
growing
retention
there.
pond goes was heavy brush. And-
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
And just so you know,
Can we just let her finish, please,
I
sir?
didn't think we were
Thank you.
looking at hard to site plan interruptions.
seem to be forgetting again. I don't know how clear.
Can we just let her finish, please, sir?
So I'm saying we do have an avenue to look back with technology to see what was there before it was removed.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think the original question was what's being done in the buffer, and if I recall correctly, there's language on that in the conditional use permit application, associated narrative. So maybe that's where we should get the answer, and maybe seek to make sure that that is still what is being proposed. I think it talked about restoring existing vegetation within the 20-foot buffer. So,
Which one was that? Sorry.
Yeah.
I actually, it's not in your papers tonight. With all that was handed out, I decided to stop printing things. But
Okay.
if you need to take a recess, I can print both of those documents.
Can we please get that, just so we have that clarified and straightened
Sure.
out?
Should we just take a moment while I do that, or do you want to keep?
Let's just take a 5-minute
Okay.
recess to give Barry a chance to.
Wasn't there also direct conversation with the Conservation Commission about the types of trees that they were gonna put in? And then I believe they suggested trees that were more.
So,
indigenous.
okay, so what I'll do, I imagine, there's a supplement to that you guys, that I put
Yeah,
on
there
the
is one I
website.
saw.
I can print that as well, so I'll be right back when I get those three items.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
That's all that here.
represents the town.
No, today's Tuesday. You know?
Yeah, I've got it here. That was one of our emails that we got.
Does anybody have a copy of,
Should we have discussion while we're in recess? Should we have discussion while we're
I
in
just
recess?
asked if you have copies of our engineer's report. I've lost them.
Don't look at it, don't look at it when you go back.
I don't think I
I think it's
I can turn it off.
I'll know better than to look into it next time.
It's in there somewhere, but. What?
The most recent one is multiple copies, right? Okay. Yeah.
Conservation, trees, and all their questions.
It was at 5 in the morning. Not very funny.
Oh, but it's not. I'm a landscape chick on small jobs, it's one big job.
We'll talk about that later.
It's a high situation, just call them up and let them decide. Look at it. Polls are closed. Almost. 8 o'clock?
No, 7 o'clock.
Oh, they open at 8.
They open
I
it.
had it reversed.
We got that later.
I'm looking for it, I've got it. I'm going from Kathy to make some.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. Ah, is this it? Yes. It is.
Right.
Found it.
What's the date on it?
The date on the email or the date on paper?
They got the email.
Oh, let me go back to that.
Something like,
Yeah, no kidding. It's go back. September 10, 3/42. It's in a chain of other
What day is it?
things.
September 10th.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a copy of the Tilton Conservation Commission July 16th minutes?
I will, that'll be in your packet, I think, here.
We have July 16th questions. So we
No, they're
do.
minutes.
Yes, it is.
I got it. Thank you. Here you go.
Oh, yes. I don't know how I lost those. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
What's that? Read it. He's telling us every tree has. Yeah, so I've got the answers that they sent to the Conservation Commission. And they write what trees will be planted, and I respond, there will be no trees planted, there's nothing removed.
The area will be revegetated and allowed to natural state.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yes.
That's everything. I think, for now.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Going back live?
Yeah, what do we? So we're looking at what we want to do about restoring that buffer area, right?
That was my question.
Right, and so let's get back to that.
I gave you some pictures to show you the restoration that has occurred, the revegetation.
If you look at the July 16th
Wait.
minutes of the Conservation Commission, you can see that the wetland scientist from the applicant proposed 15 trees, 3 shrubs placed around the pond as part of the remediation, but they're putting in the wetland. At that time, they were talking about the 20-foot buffer, I believe.
Where were you again?
That's
Sorry.
the July 16 minutes of the Conservation Commission. Well, that's not our wetland scientist.
That's in the approved site plan? We looked at it, I didn't see that in the site plan.
So, yeah, if you look at those minutes, you'll see that that was the recommendation made to the Conservation Commission from the applicant's wetland scientist.
But then that same, in this letter, when the Conservation Commission poses questions, they say that those trees aren't appropriate.
Right, and they say it again, I believe they mentioned it here,
So-
and they suggest
Right.
trees,
Different trees.
not shrubs, but trees that are more suitable to a wetlands area.
I don't see what the problem with wetlands shrubs are.
Well, I think in an area that's been disturbed like this, where there were once trees, trees should go back. I think that when you disturb an area you're not supposed to, you should revegetate it as near to what it was before you disturbed it. So, I mean, it would be, for me, kind of ridiculous to think that there were trees everywhere else on the property except for within the 100-foot buffer. There was actually a question with the Board of Selectmen on whether or not a timber cut should have been filed, a timber cutting permit should have been filed, because of the number of trees cut, so.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know how far back we're required to go and
Right after it was clear cut by this current owner.
not this
The
issue.
current owner clear cut?
No, not true.
That's what I'm asking.
So
what
this
is that what you're saying?
conversation just took place a few months ago, long after the 2016. So whoever most recently cut down trees within the buffer.
Can we hear the applicant's reason for no trees?
We bought the property in a certain condition with a certain approval.
Yeah.
If there were any trees removed, and I don't know that there were, but I know the trees were not there when we bought the property. There was some brush there, which was mowed down with a brush mower, which has largely recovered already, as shown in these pictures. These are from July, it's even taller now. We didn't cut down any trees. I mean, you have right in the pictures here. This silt fence is not quite the 20-foot buffer, it's actually a little farther, it's probably more like 25, the 20-foot buffer is right here. This has already grown back.
Right.
That's what naturally occurs in the wetlands. There may have been trees once upon a time, this whole state was covered with trees once upon a time.
When you cut down trees, trees don't grow back, scrub goes back from the roots of the tree.
We didn't cut down any trees.
So you're planning on just letting it, whatever happens, happens, that area? You're not going to do any plantings at all?
We're letting it go natural.
Letting it go
because
natural,
it's
okay.
Largely come back to where it was.
Right, I know, yeah, you don't want trees, I would expect that you don't want
Same
trees
picture.
around there.
Oh, this is the same picture?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, they're all the-
Okay, well, I just want to make sure I'm not missing out.
I personally am fine with that.
Well,
It's a very small area.
I've seen
We
it.
have, we are the second most treed state in the nation. I don't think have a lack of trees, and
at one point, the previous owner, I know, did work on that site.
There's quite a bit of work done when we
Well, they had a, was it an AOT permit maybe? That expired at a certain point, so they were under a rush to get a lot of work done when they were initially approved.
They hadn't cut in the buffer because we would have noticed it.
When? Nicola, when did the property, I guess, become Mr. Bourgeois?
That was
February, when was ownership?
yeah, last
January, February, it's, around,
Of 2018?
yeah, around there. I mean, we were leasing or renting the property typically from him, like, I think from October forward,
Yeah.
like a rent to own, or with closing or something like that, but it's just,
All I can do is go off the name, so.
According to this impact statement of conditional use permit dated 7/10/2018, it says the current proposed area of disturbance within the wetland buffer falls primarily within the area of disturbance originally proposed and approved in 2016. Given the minor modifications currently proposed, the project cannot technically be located otherwise. The buffer area has already been disturbed in accordance with the original approval. So if that was a problem, I would have thought it would have been.
Not to mention, there's a highway there that must have disturbed the wetlands at some point.
So this isn't bad.
Sherwood Drive is
Yeah.
there, there isn't a highway there.
Well, I mean,
And
Don't
between
say that.
this property and Sherwood,
yeah, well,
between this property and Sherwood.
I mean, I'm
Drive,
sure it's-
Conservation area, conservation land.
what is exactly your concern of not I mean,
I think what was
I mean, I
there
think-
should be replanted there.
I mean,
Like thought,
ideally,
if there
yes,
are-
but,
if
That
there
just for
are-
Ice House Pond or across the town universally?
If their wetland scientists recommended 15 trees, where did that come from?
well, I don't understand why they've suggested non-wetlands trees. I don't understand that either.
Well, that's their wetland scientist, he
But
didn't, you know,
this
that's
just,
their wetland scientist.
was it just something
not
you threw
ours,
in
but
there? I don't
You'll see
know.
the Conservation Commission in other language requested that the trees be more wetland trees. And if you look at Ice House Pond, you'll see this trees growing around it where it wasn't clear cut.
So,
And I'm like,
I mean,
why not trees? What's wrong with trees?
but
what's
I mean,
wrong with
just
no
doing
trees?
nothing.
I mean, what's wrong with
I-
what?
Clear cutting it and then just doing nothing and let the scrub grow back
I have a question
isn't
for Mr.
replanting and restoring what was destroyed.
I have a question for Chris Swiniarski. On the Conservation Commission minutes of July 16th of this year, in here it says, she, meaning Miss Prawl, stated that Tom, God, you guys have hard names, Tom Sokolowski, wetland scientist, had proposed 15 trees and 200 shrubs be placed around the pond as part of a remediation for the clear cutting in the wetland buffer. He suggested 5 red oak, 5 white oak, 5 sugar maples. The commissioners felt that the suggested trees were not appropriate for wet areas, and they suggested swamp white oaks, red maples, larch, and hemlocks be used. And then there was discussion about size, and that's not my purview. But at one point, there was, it sounds like a proposal from you guys to,
No, we have never proposed to do that, and we're not going to propose to do
well,
that.
then who's,
So that's a wetland scientist saying what he thinks makes sense from one perspective. That's a lot of money for something that's unnecessary. That's an awful lot of money for something that simply isn't necessary.
we didn't take trees down.
But the suggestion was from their wetland scientist.
your wetland scientist.
He didn't
suggested-
say what would happen,
I was at that meeting.
a lot of scientists, it's ideally, this is what could happen, scenario, filler.
Someone saying what they
It
feel.
was their
I've worked-
engineer.
Wait, one at a time, please. One at a time, please.
I've worked on hazardous waste sites where they remediate, they fill it in with blueberry bushes or whatever.
That's not
It's-
what's happening here.
I mean, no, they didn't propose that, but they have nothing proposed as far as bushes or
So for me, we're going backwards.
trees.
This
So,
was the original
right.
proposal from their engineer, but now all of a sudden.
Would you be happy with any plants, with shrubbery of any kind or any kind of plantings?
I would be happy with some kind of specific wetland planting.
Okay, so some kind of plantings, wetland plantings, okay.
Well, again, going back to this impact statement of July 10th, it says this area will be revegetated and allowed to return to a natural state. That doesn't say anything at all about planting anything.
Just revegetated.
Right, so this is the problem. You have a scientist suggesting something which would be ideal in the scientist's view. However, we didn't cut this down, we didn't do this. And it's really not necessary. This is almost back to its natural state right now. Sure, someone might think it's nice to plant some trees in the wetland. It's not really our job to plant those trees.
Then why did your wetland scientist that you guys hired suggest it?
He thought it'd be nice.
Yeah, their
We're not
engineer.
gonna do it.
Well, I'm trying to find it seems to be a sticking point, so let's try to,
Yeah, let's come up with something here,
I mean,
anything. Got anything?
What was the list?
Yes.
15 trees and 100 shrubs, 200 shrubs, what was it?
yeah, 15, the Tom Sokolowski, wetland scientist, proposed 15 trees and 200 shrubs.
So how about asking if we can go back, if that can be returned to?
That's what we're asking.
What's the
Proposal
answer?
is we're being squeezed. Because we were.
I'm trying to reach a compromise here where some of the members
No,
are.
the reason why I didn't do it, we probably did it because we were being squeezed, because they were misrepresented saying that we cut down trees we didn't cut down. When we mow, we use what they call mulching head, you probably know what it is. Mulching head doesn't remove the roots or nothing, that's just wire that's grown back. So to go and put trees where there's no trees is making me buy trees and put them in that heavy vegetation area. I'm literally gonna go and plant trees where there weren't trees there. So, and then also at the time, the town was still thinking that we weren't allowed to be within the 100-foot wetland buffer, so they're trying to make up for that too, but it's all, everything is always about being squeezed. So you do what you're forced to do. But at that point, and Chris wasn't even working at that point, it's ridiculous. We didn't cut trees down, we used a mulching head, and you can see where the mulching head actually, where it's all going back right now, because all it does is revegetate. The area where the retention pond is going is where there's heavier brush there, that's where retention pond is going, so there's nothing to replace there because the retention pond is there. You can't put a tree there. But we didn't cut trees in the 20-foot buffer. I don't even know if we cut even closer to that, okay? But it was vegetation, it was used a mulching head, and it grew back. So to make us do it, it's still a waste of money. It's gonna have respect. I already spent
Serves no
some money
purpose.
here. You guys spent all my tree money.
If you look at these minutes, you'll see that this was the presentation made by the engineer. There was no prompting by the Conservation Commission. There was no squeezing. It was the presentation made by the applicant's engineer. That's what they offered without any, the Conservation Commission asking them.
You also made a presentation, you were gonna approve the CUP so we can move this thing forward. We didn't do that.
So,
That's kind of a trade-off for you guys.
We're trying
I mean,
to.
can-
why we're even considering reneging on something that was offered to us.
I mean, is this a wetlands plant by any chance?
I don't know.
I
but it's
mean,
growing in the buffer.
it's
so
growing.
It should be.
It could be a wetlands planting. I mean,
It's
it would be.
lost if it's not. I
It
don't
would be
know.
difficult to plant tree, I mean, usually when they do this remediation, it's done on fresh earth.
It's 4
Freshly
feet high
disturbed.
now. All that vegetation is at least 4 feet high.
Right.
So to go in and like, okay, now we're gonna
It's
plant
just-
the whole
it's crazy.
landscaping, re-landscape the entire thing
No,
is,
do you know if
this is
there's
probably a
any
wetlands plant.
Saplings that are growing there.
I don't. I don't. I mean,
I happen to work in the landscaping industry, and I have properties that I brush cut every year, or even this year that we cut, and the vegetation has grown back because it's been a weird year for that. But
Sure.
we also have areas that the saplings, I mean, they've grown 18 inches to 20, 18, a foot and a half to 2 feet this year. as a sapling, you know, and we cut them down because that's what the client requests. And we're not in wetlands, we're not in anything, but we cut them down at the client's request. Sometimes I find that if you, part of my experience working is sometimes when you introduce a non-native plant into some of the areas that we work in, within a couple of years that plant may die. Whereas a plant that is growing there, that just grew naturally, is acclimated to that environment, and it has a better longer-term chance of survival because it's native to that spot. Whereas if Mr. Bourgeois goes to a nursery, has to get trees, and there's a virus in that soil that's in that root ball.
I don't think this is
Well, no.
the discussion. I mean, the discussion is that
Well, I'm trying
we're
to.
require them to plant.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, okay, what we have
Structure,
there
yeah.
currently is not, but there could be saplings there, we don't know that. But I'm gonna make some,
Once it's been bulldozed, those saplings are gone. What you're gonna have is scrubs growing from roots. They're not gonna mature into trees. And isn't within the planning board's authority, once a wetlands violation has occurred, where they've disturbed the buffer, that we can determine what goes back into.
I would like to see this remain because it is, Eric brought up a good point. It's healthy, it's vibrant. I have worked on remediation sites where they went in, they planted all these plantings, they didn't check the pH, and everything died. So likely this is compatible with this area.
I just want the record to be clear, no wetlands violation has occurred on this property. We know that.
I think we cut width up to the shore of Ice House Pond, so. Dory, we have the authority to say what goes back as far as plantings, once that disturbance has taken place,
Well,
or who would determine those plantings?
so, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of this surrounds compromise, and would we have what was your exact question?
Does the planning board have the authority to determine what gets planted back into an area of wetland disturbance?
I think in this case, this is partly being done in lieu of, you know, other courses of action that could be taken in response to the clearing in the buffer. So I think, you know, in the interest of not going in a different direction, it would be wise to come up with an agreement of some kind of remediate, or some whatever word you want to use. But what's going to happen in that buffer area?
That was my question.
I mean, if I could continue talking here, again, in this impact statement, it talks about a 20-foot portion of the buffer closest to Ice House Pond will be restored and revegetated to its natural condition. You know, so that brings two questions. What's happening between 20 and 60 feet, where 60 feet has been mentioned as kind of this agreed upon point? And also, what exactly does revegetated to its natural condition? Over time, that could mean 100-foot trees. Is the applicant's intent to allow things to continue to grow there, or to maintain that area? So it might make sense to get some kind of agreement on what natural condition will mean going, you know, into perpetuity.
Yeah, and we're happy to maintain as the board sees fit.
Well, I get one of my thought that just popped in my head is some of the power lines. You see the power company allows it to grow naturally for a number of years until things get a certain height, and all of a sudden you come by the next day and there's nothing there, and the process starts over again. I would be concerned if that would happen, and I would not want that to happen as personally. But I'm trying to figure out how we can get past this. I asked myself, is just planting gonna disturb the soil again, disturb the land again? You know, and where there's no guarantee that those plantings would survive.
Right, and the whole point, I would assume, with the wetlands plantings is to have the, have it holding water.
But
That's
in
one
the
of the
mean-
things that
I'm
it's,
sorry, in the meantime, you have an area that's been disturbed. It was dirt, gravel, and rutted and whatnot. What invasives have been introduced there by birds and other animals that bring them in?
Well,
So
that could
by
happen.
just saying, let it grow, you could be letting,
But that-
newly introduced invasives.
That could happen any day of the week, though.
Exactly, so if you have more control.
But there's no guarantee. I mean, there's no guarantee that if they have to plant something, it's not going to introduce, because there could be invasives in the soil that are in the root balls.
Granted, now that it's been disturbed.
Well, but either way, a bird can come and put.
But no,
Not-
it's
I don't know.
not once it's vegetated. But I mean, we're wasting time here. I'm just
we're
surprised that,
supposed to
here we have,
chaotic.
here we have a proposal made
Control.
by their engineer from their wetland scientist, and I was just surprised that it's now completely ignored. I'm not sure what I can believe. Because we seem to be going backwards from July.
So, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I feel like you guys sort of, you talk a lot about, sort of, should it be stuff from a nursery or should it be stuff that natively will grow up there? Maybe it's time to put that issue to rest for a while. And what about this question that I would guess that you guys would have that I'm not totally clear on, is what's happening between 20 feet and 60 feet? 60 feet has been mentioned several times as kind of this compromise point. But here, it talks specifically about the 20-foot buffer. Is it right that between 20, and you may want to ask the applicant, is it right, what's going on between 20 and 60 feet?
Again, we had proposed that as natural state.
Okay. So really, from 0 to 60 feet would be natural state, in a sense. Well, because you would be able to cut into the 20-foot.
Yeah, theoretically, yes. Is there additional stuff too, Nam?
Yeah, I just want to add, just so you, we'll go back to this plan, and you can see the 100-foot buffer line here. The 20-foot is actually down here where this line of silt fence is. So you can see that in some areas there's pond between the 20 and the 100. That occurs here and over here. But this is the only area of pavement that's happening. And then, as I said, there's a boulder slope that goes down to the natural ground. And this area between the boulders and the wetland is just going to be loamed and seeded, and then it will return to whatever state it was or it wants to be. This area is actually being left open as a compensatory storage area for some fill that's being placed as part of the detention pond embankment within the 100-foot, or sorry, the 100-year floodplain. So this is a sort of an offset for that.
Mhm. Yeah, so we have that under the impact statement. Yeah. Sorry, the engineer.
Are we doing this backwards and that we're not addressing the wetlands, the permit within the wetlands buffer zone before we approve something within the wetlands buffer zone?
You mean the conditional use permit? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is, if there's a motion forthcoming, that would be the one that should be first, yeah.
Yeah. All right, yeah, you're right. Kind of got off track there. That's it. So I guess that leaves us to make a motion on the planning board 18-10 conditional use permit wetlands.
Are we gonna discuss it before we make a motion on it?
Well, usually that comes after you make a motion, right?
We make a motion to accept?
Well, we can
Application?
accept or approve a conditional use permit. That's my motion, and yes, I'm making that motion. And then we can then you discuss it. Yeah, make the motion, somebody seconds it, probably, hopefully, and then discussion. Yeah, so we can just get it going so we can discuss it. So that's my motion. Jane seconded it.
There's a second by Jane. Any discussion?
Discussion. Okay, so. Oops. Oh, conditional use permit. All right. So we back to the trees, or is that we're back to the trees now, or?
For the wetlands?
We've got, I mean, there is a motion on the table. If there's no
Yeah.
discussion, you should vote on the motion.
Okay,
And whether or
so,
not it's qualifies, I would think. I mean, this is the criteria
okay.
for approving it. It's got nothing to do with trees.
Discussion? So there's no discussion?
Any discussion? Make a motion. All those,
Well,
yeah,
So, wait a minute.
are we really having discussion, or are we just gonna go ahead? I mean,
I mean-
give me a second, I was being polite
Okay,
and
well,
letting other
that's
people
why-
speak before me, but, so my question is, and it's
Okay.
probably directed at Dari, the criteria for this within our wetlands ordinance, it doesn't qualify. So do you have any suggestions of how we would go forward? Because if we're going to compromise and say 60 feet instead of 100 feet, then we have to do a conditional use permit. But as I looked at prohibited uses, permitted uses, I can't find a place to qualify for use.
Well, I think that's how it falls to a conditional use permit. Well, yeah, if it's not a permitted use and it's not a prohibited use, then you deal with it through a conditional use permit.
But the conditional uses
what page are you on?
doesn't qualify.
Well, that's why we're putting conditions, right? On it.
This is our ordinance.
That's why, so
Okay,
they call it
so it's
conditional
conditional
use,
uses.
so we're putting conditions on it.
But this is our ordinance that lists the conditional uses that are allowed within the wetlands buffer.
So what,
Not
so,
something that we make up, this is voted on at town meeting and approved.
so then if they
So I'm just-
qualify, then why do we have a conditional use
yeah.
permit?
What page are you on? I'm sorry.
57.
Thank you.
Well, I was asking for help from Dari to, if he knows of something other than what I'm looking at. I mean, I have other uses that the applicant proves will not interfere with the wetlands functions and values, water quality, or value as wildlife habitat pursuant to section 14.2.1.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the catch-all there, I guess, and,
Well, it's what I'm just trying to get to.
okay.
So do you think that, if I read everything else, it doesn't go there?
Well, there's also, I mean, what about the second bullet, the construction, repair, or maintenance of streets, roads, and other access ways?
But that's not what we're doing.
Well, okay, let me just, so what is it that's in the 100-foot buffer that you feel may not be permissible through a conditional use permit?
So it says, get to my notes. So on page 56, it doesn't allow alteration of grades by contrary or grading of the land. So that would be the infiltration basin. The asphalt parking lot definitely doesn't belong in there. That's why I'm looking for guidance from you. If you
So,
could
okay, on the basins,
go back to 58.
right, on basins, there's 14.3.2, wetlands constructed for stormwater treatment, agricultural use, waste treatment, or other such purposes are exempt from the provisions of the Wetlands Conservation District. So that's why the ponds can be allowed in the buffer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And what about the asphalt parking lot?
I mean, to me, that's covered through that bullet, that second bullet under 14.6.1.
That's the one that I just read to you?
Or,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Any other discussion? Catherine, any other discussion?
No, I've already answered the questions.
All right.
I asked.
What was your motion? Approve the conditional use permit for the wetlands. All right,
I second that.
and Jane seconded, so any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Yeah,
Yes, opposed?
thank you, Darren.
All right. You. We're halfway there,
Okay,
5 more hours to go.
good job.
Just kidding. But you get paid by the hour, so you're
Covered
okay.
all the same facts.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on.
So now you have the site plan review approval, but I think what Attorney Swiniarski just said is probably true. A lot of, you've discussed a lot of it already.
We have discussed a lot of it.
Yes,
We do have to have the, talking about the previous plan, this plan is superseding any previous.
Yeah, I mean, if you, there are some conditions that I think an approval should include that, I mean, if you want, we could talk about that, if that's the direction you'd like to go.
I'd like to, but it sounded like they were amenable to that comment before. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
certainly.
Are we gonna go through the engineer's questions?
Engineer, what letter is that one?
This is August 10th, 2017.
I certainly would think that would be the source of some conditions of approval if that,
Yeah,
if that were the direction we're
Right.
going.
I'll take a look at this. So,
permits,
you're talking about the driveway permit?
dollar permits. Do we have one permit?
We may want to have our response to that, to just explaining, because a lot of these are, did you do this, our response is, yes, we did. And it's September 5th from Notice Engineering, should have that.
Yeah, I got that.
Sure.
I found it confusing and easy to put them side by side.
Right. The applicant has consulted with NHT.
I have it.
Condition
Looks
3.
like this. Here.
The details and necessity of such driveway permit amendment are under review by the applicant and his DOT. They are amenable to, so that should be part of any condition.
Wait a minute, can you speak up a little
So,
bit too? Because are we
On the
forming
letter from-
conditions here?
Well, this is, we're reviewing the,
Right, the letter.
our third-party review on dated August 10th,
Mm-hmm.
and their response to that letter is September 5th.
Yeah, I think it's super too.
I don't see that number 2 under zoning matters was addressed. I see we have some life information on life, but
Oh, there was a lighting plan submitted.
Oh, but in the Novus letter, they didn't actually set it as a bullet, a number 2. If you, the last sentence, I think, under their response to zoning matter number 1, says a copy of the lighting plan was provided to the planning board during a previous meeting.
Which we
And
have.
also,
That's this, right?
yeah, you have a lighting plan and 2 sort of spec sheets for
Oh, yeah.
some of the lights that are going in.
Chrissy knew that new one, the special one that showed all the special details. Photometric. Your engineer required a photometric one in addition. So
Oh, yes,
I ended up
right.
with that one that night I gave to you guys, kind of, had it there, so we sent you a new photometric plan with all the details.
Yes, right.
Just to let you know, it's a correct error here, it's Tilton Northfield Fire EMS.
I know, Northwood.
It said Northwood, but the engineer, our engineer wrote that, so you guys probably just, oh, Tilton Northwood. Northwood's a long way away, just to let you know.
It is. My apologies.
So, it's just a,
That's all right. I knew what it was.
Who's got the better fire department?
I'm gonna say we did this, I'm a commissioner.
Tend to agree then.
It's a great afternoon.
Was there something specific you were going to say about this letter and then your response to it? Because I just kind of wanted to hear what that was.
No, we just, we went through, numbered them line by line, just to make sure everything was covered, that, this letter didn't go into any major issues that we haven't discussed quite thoroughly tonight. A lot of this is just minor stuff that, we've either already done or would do, and we said we do on a final plan, the plan that gets signed. To the extent that it points out other permits are needed from other state agencies, yes, they are. We filed those applications. Sometimes it becomes a chicken before the egg thing. We have to start somewhere. If one board says, I want these permits first, and this one says, I want these permits first. We filed all the applications. Obviously, we know permits from DOT.
Right. That's pretty. So we don't need to-
The board wouldn't have the power to waive those. It'd be nice if you.
Right, I don't know why that's really.
Never mind if I grab a drink from your water bucket.
$10. $10 a cup.
Are you the commissioner on the,
No, go right ahead.
on
Not
the water
yet.
district?
Yeah, I'm the water guy.
I haven't seen this before, there's a recommendation for a surety bond.
I know, I was just looking at that.
No, that's exactly what we did with Kevin's
Yeah.
development.
So does that, we make that
Well-
part of our condition?
We could actually take the language directly from Kevin's approval and use that, I believe, which
But
actually in your
why would
packets.
we need that? Isn't that I mean,
Yeah, what would that be,
Little
because he's not
overkill?
building a road, he's not building a,
Place the site was abandoned.
That's not,
Oh, let's see here.
Because he's not building.
It's not new.
I guess I would see that more needed if he was doing work to Bitter Lane, but it does not appear that he's doing work to Bitter Lane.
Is dis- the site
Yeah,
is-
that's up to you guys.
The site is disturbed.
all right, so
Yeah.
then why don't we require that of most places? that
We-
site plan?
I think
The
it's-
larger ones.
And that's usually for a big development, maybe where you're building a new road, that's typical, but not just in any typical case. I'm surprised that's in there.
Yeah, I think, the answer to why haven't we required in the past, I think has to do, you're always improving processes, and I think a recent improvement is the more frequent use of a third-party engineer, and that's where these recommendations have been coming. But it is a recommendation. You are certainly empowered as a board to not include that as a condition of approval.
I'm not going to approve it. I'm not interested in doing that.
What are we talking about?
It's a recommendation from Keith
Oh,
Nordstrom,
There's number?
number 5,
Under
and
general
it
com-
says
500 general comments.
Halfway on the second page.
A guarantee?
a financial performance guarantee.
We can provide you a guarantee.
I don't wanna make it a re-
I think, even though it's new kind of to Tilton, it's pretty common elsewhere, and I think, a lot of engineers who work in multiple towns are fully prepared, as it sounds like, or consultants or representatives or attorneys are accustomed to dealing with it, and yeah, it may be something that.
Well, if you'd like to do it, then
Deal.
Yeah,
that's fine. I just didn't want to get into a habit.
I appreciate it
Well,
very
you
much.
absolutely do want to get that.
It's usually something I work out with planning staff, wherever the details of what it actually is, we can give you a guarantee. And again, I do appreciate you considering it, and I do agree with you, but that's one thing that will cost us something, so I'm happy to just move on.
Okay. Good to know.
And if you, just so you guys can look, I think this would work. The condition of approval in case 1802 is a performance guarantee shall be provided in amount and form acceptable to the town of Tilton to serve as a financial surety for full and final completion of all, in this case it says street drainage and utility infrastructure improvements and proper installation and maintenance of erosion and sedimentation control measures throughout the construction of all, and then again, this is the street drainage and utility infrastructure improvements. That actually would probably work. You might just want to replace street with some other word.
Infrastructure?
Or just remove, let's see, so all,
What'd you say? Driveway?
driveway built, maybe building, driveway, drainage, and utility, something like that. Yeah.
Basically, it's we are a SWIP plan required by AOT, that we already have registered and filed, and we were maintaining so since the project began.
Oh, yeah.
It's required by the state already, not even by you, but I have to do it anyway, whether you ask for it or not.
Yeah.
You've already been doing it.
No issue guarantee.
Every project you registered with the state.
We haven't opened this to public comment, have we?
No, that's true.
So I'm gonna just, while we're here, open up this to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, I will close it to the public. Entertain a state.
I feel like I'm going into a vegetative state.
That 60 foot. We have to put in, do we have to convey in there that,
Allowed to return to a natural state.
Yeah.
we have to convey in there, in our thing that we're giving it a 60 foot buffer?
No, I don't think so. I think you're not, I don't think you're actually giving away any buffer. I feel as though the buffer matters were addressed through the conditional use permit.
Just,
Well, going forward though, what is to specify that they're, I mean, basically what we've negotiated is a 60-foot buffer, is it not? That can't be disturbed in the future, can't be clear cut, mowed down, trimmed.
I think that would be an appropriate condition, let's put it that way.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, so where would that language be?
would they have to be in the conditions of approval?
It could be in a conditional approval requiring it as a note on the plan, you know, something like that.
A note on this.
Okay, so a
That-
condition,
Hold on. Okay,
okay,
60 foot. What did you say, Captain? 60 foot buffer what? No.
Undisturbed
Undis-
60-foot wetlands buffer.
you're doing good,
Huh?
you're doing good.
Sorry.
To be revegetated and allowed to return to a natural state.
Well, it's already,
I think you could just say, leave it undisturbed,
leave that left undisturbed.
Yeah.
that's it.
And
I think you need to gonna have to specify that you are going from what they agreed to do in July to something different. So if you're gonna say, let it just grow into scrub, and say it. Because what they proposed is not what you're seemingly going to accept tonight. It was not our proposal, it was theirs, so.
Yeah, well, as Jane was saying, natural, just let it,
Be
what did you say?
revegetated and allowed to return to a natural state.
Revegetated would seem to indicate that we're going to revegetate it, we're going to plant.
Yeah,
something there.
yeah, you'll have to fix that.
so be left undisturbed and allowed to.
Allowed to return to a natural state.
I didn't think of this on my own, maybe you should put with the exception, even though it's somewhat accepted through the ordinance, but of the ponds, the detention ponds, that they have to be maintained.
Oh, yeah.
And they are in the 60-foot area.
What do they call it?
Detention ponds?
And do we have a plan for the maintenance of those detention ponds?
Yeah, that was one thing.
I can't
It's on
remember.
the plans.
What about is,
It's part of the alteration of terrain permit.
so, yeah.
They require an inspection and maintenance plan.
Okay, that the town also does, so do we have one for the town, a
We can
plan of
provide you
what
with
we're
a
gonna
copy
do
of
to
that.
maintain? I'm sorry.
Is that-
We'll give you a copy.
Yeah,
So,
the copies go here, they're stored,
Detention ponds, is that the right word?
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, a common condition we place is that, sometimes you guys will require, oftentimes you require an updated stormwater maintenance plan. We may not be dealing with that here, but also, that the maintenance reports be submitted to the land use office.
Right.
Yeah, we always require that. Is that that?
I'm trying.
Add to the condition.
I'm running out of room. Go ahead.
Oh, darn.
Go ahead.
That they contact the Board of Selectmen for any possible improvements to Bittern Lane, since they're planning on extending a culvert pipe under Bitter Inlet. Contact be made to New Hampshire DOT for any possible changes to the Route 3 Bitter and Lane intersection. And then those changes would have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen as well.
But wouldn't that be part of the permit?
Not necessarily, no, and that's what the
We
previous
cannot
applicant,
confer jurisdiction on the Board of Selectmen through a condition.
the previous applicant was delayed because they didn't realize that Bitter and Lane was in jurisdiction of the Selectmen. And they were dealing with New Hampshire DOT for quite a long time before they realized that they had to start
It's the
over.
selectmen.
I want to make sure that
That's
it's
a town.
Right, it's town road, so.
Because, yeah, I mean, the way it worked, not to drag out the meeting, but I mean, in the DOT will only accept a driveway permit from the town. So the town has to work with the applicant.
Sure.
So she's essentially just trying to facilitate that process.
So
for the
it's
condition.
really more of a clarification point.
No, DOT has questioned whether or not there's enough turn radius there for the larger trucks and whatnot.
Oh, right.
And the Board of Selectmen haven't been approached, and the
Yeah.
size trucks are going over there, and if that road is going to impact it, the culverts that are in there, how that's going to impact it, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to make sure that's clear, so we don't have that confusion again,
Okay,
because it was a substantial delay to that project.
Okay.
right. That was 2, right?
That's 7.
You said you had 2 things, right?
Those are the two things.
Sure.
That was the 2
To contact
things,
the Board of
okay,
Selectmen for any improvements to Bitter and Lane itself.
okay.
And they have to contact DOT to see if they're going to require any improvements to the intersection. And then any of those would have to go through the Board of Selectmen as well.
Okay, fair enough.
Because they can't improve our intersection without our permission.
Okay.
Okay. You got all that, Dari? We're gonna put that in the form of a motion here somehow. You ready? I'm allowed to make a motion, right?
Absolutely.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve
Planning board.
planning board case 1810, site plan review. The following conditions. That, make a motion that we accept, approve planning board case 1810, site plan review with the following conditions. That noted on the plan submitted to the town, it says that this plan supersedes the plan of 2016. That the applicant provides financial surety bond to the town of Tilton.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Note on the plan that the 60-foot undisturbed buffer, wetland buffer, with the exception of the wetland, with the exception of the detention ponds, as noted on the plan. Submit plans for the maintenance of the retention ponds and reports submitted to the land use office. Contact the Board of Selectmen for improvements, any improvements made to Bittern Lane. Should be prior to any improvements made to Bittern Lane.
No,
Oh,
they need to contact the Board of Selectmen to see if the Board of Selectmen are going to require any improvements.
Okay, contact-
made to the road.
contact the Board of Selectmen to see if there's any requirements made to improvements to Bittern Lane. Excuse me. Contact, I don't know how
I
to.
think you have that one wrong. It's, if we're going to propose any improvements, we need Board of Selectmen approval.
No, they need to contact the Board of Selectmen to see if the Board of Selectmen are going to require any improvements or changes to Bittern Lane to accommodate the heavy truck traffic. That's my condition.
So that is in effect the planning board conferring jurisdiction on the Board of Selectmen that it does not have. Basically putting this project before another board.
Just like
Yeah,
made
can
con-
we reword that?
Just like we made conditions To require them to contact New
Actually,
Hampshire
let-
DOT.
if I could just maybe, so there's going to be a change of use on Bitter Lane, which is a town road, and a driveway permit would potentially be required for that change of use submitted to me. And I would consult other parties in town to find out, whether that driveway permit should be approved. Now, the driveway permit is where when DOT gets a driveway permit, that is where they assess whether roadway improvements need to be made before they can issue the driveway permit.
And the selectmen can also require changes, just as DOT can to their roads to Bitter and Lane. And that was at the advice of an attorney that we consulted
Okay.
when we were site planning the previous applicant for
Yeah.
that property. That was going to bring in more traffic on Bitter and Lane.
We're not bringing more traffic.
And
No.
this isn't up for debate.
Well, it's up to the board.
But we make conditions.
That was number 5, right?
Yes.
All right.
Number 6, it's probably tied into this. I wrote down New Hampshire DOT driveway permit for improvements to Bitter Lane intersection. But then I also wrote for number 7, New Hampshire DOT driveway permit, so I think I wrote it down twice.
Yeah, so was the point of the condition supposed to be that
Make sure they,
contact DOT?
yes,
basically? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
as per someone's letter,
Lambert.
sure, Keach, yeah. Were there any other?
So let's see. So the first, under Keach Nordstrom, you got general comments. Number 1 would be covered under your typical, all required local, state, and federal permits shall be obtained.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. And is it understood broadly that your condition number 2 is meant to encompass the wording from Kevin LeCat, from the
Yeah,
approval of 1802?
The one that you read us
Okay.
before, yes.
And we're gonna replace streets with building and parking lot and driveway, yeah, okay. Let's see, okay, so I think number 2 is covered under your DOT stuff, number 4 is covered under with a condition we just added. Performance guarantee is covered, okay. And that, this was at the recommended that, probably something that could be put on any notice of decision, but, no certificate of occupancy shall be issued until final plan is signed.
Okay,
But that's up to you guys.
yeah, I like that one. I guess make that my number 7.
And conditions are met, or does that go?
Well, you wouldn't sign the final plan, yeah.
Okay.
Just to be clear, some of those are conditions
They go to the delivery.
subsequent,
True.
like obtaining all permits.
True. Yeah, that's understood, yes.
That's my motion, I think.
All right.
It's a little cumbersome, but it's a motion. Jane seconded it. Can you say it a little louder just for the
I
record?
second that.
All right, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll make a motion, or I'll vote, anyone, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Oh,
Definitely aye.
all right, all those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Go forth and
it's in.
do what you do.
Thank you all.
Whatever that
for your
is.
Time tonight, I know it's.
Oh. Thank you.
You too.
I tried. Who's having a campfire tonight? Oh, we still have more, don't we?
Good job, guys.
Yeah, we don't, they're not on any, they're not in any order. Yeah, let's, so when this is under other business? All right. So we have some other items and other business. We have to go over we've received the final plan for 100 Autumn Drive. Do we have that, Dari?
Yeah, the final plan, yes.
There's some mixed up.
So I'm going to put a paper copy in front of you, Mr. Chairman, and
Well, I get the good stuff.
maybe invite planning board members to gather around if possible.
Yeah,
Or
the all planning board.
Yeah, they're right here.
or I can, actually, we've got here, what we do. You know, go off these. And then you have the notice of decision.
Is it in our minutes?
It's in your stuff.
Yeah, sure, Dari. You know how my stuff looks right now?
Hey, I know. I gotta dig through my stuff to try
Well, I
and.
saw it earlier when I was going through it, so I'm just gonna find it.
I did.
Okay.
Kevin Cass.
Case 1704, Robert Callahan.
Here we go. All right.
And we do have some members of the public here, so we definitely don't want to forget to offer them an opportunity to comment if they wish to do so.
Okay.
But I can, if you want, I can start by going over these conditions, or you can.
So. Oh, I cannot read it. Oh, you're gonna get cozy.
We're gonna get cozy. Guys.
Wow. So I guess condition number one. When do I invite the public, Dari?
I would say after,
Okay.
but it's up to you. I don't know.
We'll go through these. There's 12 conditions, so we'll go through those.
Is there, does the public wish to speak at this moment? Or-
I can wait till after.
Okay. We'll be out of here by midnight, I promise, so don't worry. All right, plan, approval condition number one, a plan note shall be added to clarify that all of the uses on the site shall be discontinued and the only use permitted on the site is an adult care facility.
And that's note
I
14?
was gonna say
Yeah.
14.
Yeah. And 15, I guess.
Yeah. I have a quick question on that.
Okay.
On their, and I don't know how legal this is, but on their Facebook page,
Yeah.
they did not close until, I believe it was August 2nd. I don't know if that makes a difference.
No, I don't think it's of significance at this point.
Okay.
What's important is there's a note that says, at the as-of date, if that's not 100% accurate, it doesn't really harm anyone.
Just taking that. The approved lot line adjustment for the acquisition of 1.5 acres shall be finalized and recorded prior to the site plan approval, and its existence shall be noted on the final site plan.
So it's a plan reference number 1, and I have in my hands now the deed that proves that it was done.
Okay.
No storage outside the wetland.
I've got that part. Number 3. All right, number 3. The plan shall be revised to depict snow storage areas outside the wetlands and the wetlands buffer. Snow storage I see back here. Right here.
And you have 3 spots. I think there is the one to the, is it 4? Yeah, right. To the right, the rightmost one seems to come, exactly 20 feet within the buffer. it's actually marked in very large font, 20 feet.
I'm missing it.
Where do you see 20 feet? Oh, is that little dashed line right there?
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Yeah, they're saying, look, 20 feet, snow storage, edge of wetland.
I got you.
Yeah.
I was looking at that. So it's actually 5 snow storage spaces here.
Oh,
Is the one on the top left, where's the 20-foot buffer there? Is there a scale?
yeah, let's see here.
1 inch equals 30 feet.
So, wait, this, is that bold line, what does that mark? The edge of what?
Wait, I'm talking about the top left corner.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to see where the 20-foot.
well, I'm asking you
No, that
what
looks like
that,
that looks like it's an edge of a wetland.
if it is, then there may be a problem. That looks like less than 20 feet, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Here.
Let me, maybe we should, do you want to continue going through? Yeah, I mean, so what I did was I took a little piece of paper and I sort of estimated 2/3 of the distance between 0 and 30. And as I hold it, if I put one end of the line on that bold shape, it seems, yeah, the corner of the snow storage seems to be closer than 20 feet.
I mean, according to the legend, it seems to be a storm drain or a water line or, I don't know, all those
Well-
lines. Oh, no, those say you.
What, can you remind us, any of the planning board members who might be familiar with the site, what exactly is that thing?
Which thing?
Well, you
The
would
thing
think-
surrounded by the bold line?
Don't know.
Right, what is that?
That is a pond.
Okay,
Ah,
so that,
Oh, what is pond, is that close?
It's a
well then
Because
that's what it
that's
is.
Yeah,
house.
that is the
And
pond.
there's a stream that comes under.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
pond.
Just take my note.
Dam down here?
Yeah, that's a pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we have to figure that out. Number 4, the plan shall be revised so that vehicular ingress and egress from the site travels forward along the right side of the entryway as is customary in the United States. Because I remember at one time it was backwards. So,
That
all
was a
right,
good catch.
it was there. All right.
Interior and exterior.
Number 5, the plan shall depict the location of interior and exterior security cameras. So according to this, there's an exterior security camera back here, right here, right here. I mean, we didn't really say how many there were, so.
So what,
No,
these
there's
are
not.
those, right?
There's one showing here, there's one showing here, there's one showing there.
Concerned
I don't
about
really,
interior.
no, we only feel concerned about,
Yeah,
personally.
me too.
Anyway.
I thought that was weird.
Oh, right, yeah.
Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, number 6, a certificate of occupancy with this new,
These are not for the site plan, these are for
oh, final approval.
what land use is gonna have to.
however, 11 and 12 have requirements that things be placed on the plan, and those are addressed through note 16 and 17.
Nice.
So I would propose that we are not certain that this is out of compliance. It looks like it's out of compliance. It looks like it doesn't meet the 20-foot requirement on that last snow storage area, but, I mean, obviously after public comment, maybe we can address that more, but I think we need to talk a little bit more about that, how we might deal with that.
Okay. So, I guess we have, I open up the public comment out there?
Yeah, thanks,
Alright.
sorry.
No, that's great. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
Please,
Sir, please state your name for the record.
Thomas Mead.
Thomas Reed.
And my question for the board is one of clarification and procedure. Item number 11, which were the conditions subsequent to approval of the plan that are noted now on the plan. And it has to do with the background checks of compliance to this facility and staff. And it says that those background checks have to be completed prior to any client residing at the site and prior to any employee arriving at the site, and that those background checks need to be available to the police department for inspection on request. My question for the board is who is responsible for actually making sure those background checks indeed are requested and reviewed periodically? Is it the planning board?
No, of course not. I don't think so. No, it'd be the police department.
In the prior discussion, it was made clear that the maintenance of retention ponds in the wetlands had to be reported. Those maintenance records had to be reported
Right.
to the planning staff. Here we have a condition that background checks have to be completed prior to anybody occupying that site. And I don't hear the same condition that those records, they have to be available to the police if requested. My question is, what prompts the police to request those records to make sure that this provision is being complied with?
Would the code enforcement officer be the one that would be the pilot of this?
Yeah, and I think, you know, something that came up in previous discussions about this is that, you know, maybe it would, I don't know that this is the location where it would happen, but yeah, I mean, that some message potentially could go to the code enforcement officer that yes, this indeed is something that, you know, you need to check up on every so often. You know, maybe it's, well, I don't want to say this, that can happen, yes, and it would be the code enforcement officer that would do it. So,
Well, this is a condition of the planning board's approval. He's the one that oversees to make sure that those conditions are met, and this
Yeah.
is a condition.
right.
So he would be the pilot.
Does he know that?
He will when he gets this. That's how he is informed of, once we have an approval.
And what are my rights as A, an abutter, and B, a resident, to ensure that that's happening? What assurance do I have? Can I ask the code enforcement officer whether this has been done?
Of course.
Yeah, definitely.
And is he under any obligation to confirm to me that yes, indeed it has been?
As a town official, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why that shouldn't be made, you don't have
Be
to
an issue.
have details of names, but maybe numbers of
Well,
applicants.
I don't think that's even what he's asking, I don't, yeah, I mean, he's asking to
He's
make sure
asking
that
if
it's
it's
being
being
done,
done.
yeah.
You absolutely have that right.
I'm just
Okay,
wondering
and
the level of
let's
detail.
be a little clear here. The being done is that police department is actually making a request to review these background checks.
I
I would
think
say
it works
the
the other
code-
way around.
Suspect the code enforcement officer would have to get a report from the police department. I mean, if he asked them, this is being done, then they would generate them going to inspect, see how many residents, employees, staff they have, and they would generate a report from them to the code enforcement officer.
Wouldn't it be, and I'm not sure about this process, but the, wouldn't the institution require the background checks and ask?
Yeah, of course they do.
That's
They
how it would
require
go. It wouldn't be, the police department's not gonna call them and say,
Background checks don't have to be done by the local police department, do they? Does it specify by our police department?
So it'd be available, subject to review,
Right,
inspection.
it just
does.
says background checks.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Review.
specify by our police or.
oh, okay, well,
Whatever.
however, it's, they do background checks, I don't know. A service, yeah, it says background checking service. So,
It says that they shall be available and subsequent to review by our police department.
An inspection, that's
So
correct.
it's only when they want to inspect them that they will go and do that.
Or if the code enforcement officer requests.
Goes and requests it.
I mean, what Al, I guess, would be enforcing would be that the police department is, or not, maybe not actually enforcing, he would simply be investigating to find out if the police department is conducting, or is, what is it, reviewing.
Doing a periodic review of the records that are required.
yeah.
Now, how do they do people who are on probation? Do they go in and check? That is,
I don't know how that process
either.
works,
I mean,
but I can see this process is they'd have to be working in unison, and we do that often with all of our departments. I mean, the code enforcement officer would make them aware of this condition, contact them periodically, I mean, certainly before they get started, make them aware that this has to take place. In order for he can give them a certificate of occupancy, he'd have to go to the police and say, can you please inspect and check and see that this has been done for all the employees and all the, what are they calling them?
residents.
Residents, I was gonna call them applicants, but,
They're residents.
Potential
I mean, that's
patients,
how I would see that
Yeah.
taking place.
potential staff or potential patients.
Patients, there you go. And then, as I said, I can see that generating a report. Our code enforcement officer wouldn't be privy to the specific information,
Right.
but he would certainly get a report from the police saying, yes, they have 5 patients, 2 staff, and they have background checks for each one.
And would it be your understanding that as in the normal course of events, that if I made a written request to the code enforcement officer asking whether or not the police had reviewed the residents and the employees for this condition, that I would get a written response back?
If you requested one from him, then I see no reason why you wouldn't get a written response.
But that doesn't mean, though, that we can insist that the police do this.
right, like Al doesn't have the authority to tell, it would just, I think what would happen
What would
is
the Board of
then.
Selectmen do?
Exactly. That's, I think Mr. Mead and I kind of talked, it would wind up potentially, that he would discover things aren't going the way he would want and potentially approach the Board of
We have to
Selectmen.
remember that the code enforcement officer, the Board of Selectmen is the enforcement authority for this. The Board of Selectmen hire the code enforcement officer to do that job for them. So, you can see the chain of command.
So I will work with the code enforcement officer. If that doesn't seem to be going well, I will come back to the selectmen.
Come to the Board of Selectmen,
Or
or Dari. He is the department head of MD. So I would go to Dari, the code enforcement does, and then the selectmen. That would be the chain of command there.
and the selectmen do have, together, the selectmen have the right to request that the police department review these records.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the public? Yes,
I
sir.
have a question. What is the snow storage now? Why aren't they putting the snow there? I mean, there was a snow storage place on the property as a sports center. So why isn't the snow going there? You say it's getting rid, it's within 20 feet of the wetlands. Is that where it has been stored? Or is that a new proposed use?
It's on the
Parking
lot.
areas have been added, the outside configuration has changed somewhat, so we've added parking.
How many people are going to be in this building?
9.
There's a lot of parking places there, and they put more
That's all I
parking?
can tell you.
At,
about this.
at one point, the sports center added usage of the fitness center.
Yeah.
And part of that requirement or approval process was to add additional parking. And
Oh, so, okay, I thought this was since it became the adult
Oh,
care
no.
facility.
This property added parking. They, through this site plan process, didn't want to get rid of any of that parking.
Right.
Because they do have the option of coming back and re-site planning for another use. So that's why
Answers my
things
question.
have shuffled a bit.
any other comments from the public? Mr. Reed? Oh, no, you just scratching, sorry. All right, we'll close it to the public.
So could we not approve this on condition that you clarify that snow storage, because that simply needs to be reduced or moved or eliminated since they have snow storage in so many other locations?
Yeah, and I guess I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to approve this and allow for that to be addressed administratively, and that the chairman can sign the plan provided that one bit is addressed, either by him explaining that it's fine or him changing the plan just in that one spot to bring the snow storage into compliance.
Fine.
I agree.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I have some knowledge of this property. And,
So it, is that, we may not need a motion unless you want to make one, just nail it down. I
Let's
mean, I
do
think
formal.
we have one, okay.
I guess make a motion to, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Sign.
Approve it, or as a sign,
Approved.
assign and approve this site plan with, or seeking clarification on the snow storage in the top left corner
Mhm.
We're going to use the compass button.
administratively,
Okay.
indicated by the number 36.66 feet, and I don't know what that means.
Okay.
Second.
That's second. Okay. We're so tired.
Oh, second, any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. Next, do we have to sign this one, or is there a?
No, I think what, the Kettlehead one, or what, oh, no. Yeah, I think what we'll do is we won't sign any of these tonight, we gotta clear up that 20-foot buffer area.
All right,
Now, we've got Kettlehead, but no one here is, there's no one here from Kettlehead, so maybe we should switch to Highland Ridge.
sure,
Okay.
all right. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So long.
You can go back and get us a coffee. Cumberland Farms open 24 hours. So is the Irving. They have good hot chocolate.
Dunkin' Donuts is open there.
Don't leave so good. All right, so I guess next on our agenda is Highland Ridge Cluster Development. And I have no idea what they're doing. I do know what they're doing.
Hi, Delary, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you guys.
Hang in there.
For the record, I'm Jack McCormick still, and I'm on board for the applicant. Kent Brown's here with me, Kevin McCass, I'm part of the applicant. By way of background, slight background at this hour, I'll try and be faster than the other guys were. The CBA amended the square foot requirement for footprints. As we all know, the original variance allowed a 24 cluster lot subdivision to create a rather last minute arbitrary square foot requirement for the footprint of 1,500 square feet. Did not come from this board, it came from them. They modified that fairly recently, so now the footprints are allowed to be up to, not required to be, but up to 1,880 square feet. And again, that wasn't something this board required, but they did. There's no ordinance requiring a square foot size at all. Now, that enlarged footprint will allow for additional first floor living and two-car garages. What does that do? Well, first of all, there's no increase in the number of homes. 24 sites are still 24 sites. The result is actually more cars are being shielded from public view. So rather than being in a driveway, what will be happening is those cars will be inside garages now, leaving driveways free. So what you have is two things. You've got cars not in public view, that's nice, and more public parking for company. So when company comes, rather than parking on the side of the road where they shouldn't, they can park in the driveway. That's a good thing. Now, the state and Steve Keach, two professionals, and Dari also conclude that there's no impact on drainage. And I think Dari gave a nice memo to you all today, or earlier, was it yesterday or today? I don't remember. At this stage meeting, every day seems the same. It's one continuum. I can't remember where. But Dari gave a very well-reasoned memo, and Steve Keach did too, saying that the state and Steve agree that the current drainage apparatus, the plans, are adequate for the increase in size, which actually is about the size of that white board I've been looking at for 4 hours, right behind you. About the same size. It's 15 by 20. So the drainage, I think, is a significant point. I've been to many hearings on this case, some before you, some before ZBAs, and drainage is the topic most hotly debated. And the key is that the people who know, not the ones who think they know, but the trained professionals say there's no effect on drainage, and that's critical. It's obvious that there's no traffic increase, same number of houses, same number of cars. It's also obvious no change in utilities, no parking increase, no parking demand, no hazardous waste issue, we're talking a small addition, and there's no fuel storage issues. None of these things are occurring. Now, I would suggest to you that this is an interesting matter. I know that there's a form Dari has to give you all to decide whether or not we can bypass this board or not. And one of the criteria, I think, is exterior appearance being amended. I think that when you think about site plan review, most usually it's a commercial property and something's happening with it, change in use. And oftentimes it's something like in my neck of the woods where a gas station is now being converted to a branch bank, or a failed bank is becoming a gas station, something like that. In a case like that, it's obviously a change in appearance. Here, I think it's important to realize this board approved cluster lots. It did not approve architecture, it did not approve the homes, it did not approve the size of the homes. It basically was, you approved the subdivision. Now, the cluster lots haven't changed one bit. The variance allows Kevin's people to build up to 1,880 square feet. Some may be 13, for argument's sake, some may be 17. There's no idea what's going to be on each lot. And I would suggest to you, you can't have a change in appearance if there isn't an appearance. There's nothing there. How do you know what's going on there? And basically, there's nothing to change. These are it's raw land. I suggest to you that particular criteria does not apply in our case. We're not the same as the commercial structures being amended. So I would suggest also that the slight change in the footprint has no material effect on any of the criteria or issues the planning board should be addressing. There's no need to re-argue the variance again down here. It's all been done ad nauseum, and I think we're at the end of the line. I respectfully suggest to you, you should take the advice of your town planner and the trained professionals who conclude there's no additional site plan review necessary. Thank you.
I have a question.
I mean,
How do you understand? So there's no increase in the number of bedrooms in the homes?
And that was the baseline. It's all based upon square footage.
No.
Footprint.
And I'm thinking of the septic system, which I believe is based on, the size of the septic, I believe, is based on the number of bedrooms in the home.
He's a sewer man, not me, I'm a lawyer. Similarity.
I get to talk about the pool.
So that's my question, are you increasing the
Big
number
round.
of bedrooms in the home, which would have an effect on the septic system?
No.
Okay. All right. So, because I did hear, I did
Best
hear,
answer given all night.
I did hear an increase in the living space, so we're talking.
Not necessarily, Catherine, I'm sorry to
Well,
interrupt
nobody
you.
just said to me, so do I.
Yeah,
So what it is it's the footprint. So the houses could have been 1,500 square feet, but 2 stories, so they could have been 3,000 square feet. It's not a limit on the size of the house, it's the footprint. So
So no second story?
there will be some second stories. They don't all have to be 1880.
Okay.
So this is, in order to have a first floor master suite and a garage, Kevin just could not come up with a house design that fit within 1,500 square feet. So that's where the 1880 came up. That was the minimum size.
Okay, so that was the purpose of the.
Yeah. But if somebody wanted a colonial and wanted to be on 2 floors, well, they could have that.
Okay,
So it doesn't affect the number of bedrooms or the square footage of the house.
okay. So you may have more living room space or common space, let's call it, and it allows you to add garages to the property?
Yeah.
right.
And that wasn't planned before the garages?
They were, but we just couldn't get them to fit. We could get them to fit in the 1,500 square feet if it was, let's say, a
Okay.
1-car garage colonial.
Right.
But we couldn't get a 2-car garage with a first floor master to fit in there. That was the issue.
So there's definitely no impact on the septic?
No.
That remains the same? Okay. All right. So the other is a comment. I do remember the meeting, I believe it was John, might be wrong, the chairman of the planning board did state that if you went to ZBA and got approval, you would be back here for a site plan. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, I think it was more a matter of coming back here just to inform the board of what we're doing right now as opposed to re-site planning because it's already, we went over, I mean, anything that could have possibly changed would have been the drainage. So to kind of prevent anything of getting pushed down the road further, we said, well, let's address those things first in 2 manners. One with DES, get their permit and agreement, as well as the authority of the board's town engineer to review and make sure that it was okay. Both of those arms said yes. Everything else we felt wasn't really affected, but again, when we spoke with Diary and so forth, it just seemed like, the right thing to do is at least come back before this board to let you guys know what we're doing, as opposed to rehashing it.
I think Kevin's right. I took away from that. Sometimes, in my experience, when things for the boards, they kind of poof away, they kind of drift off, and people lose oversight. Oh, I thought you had it, and you didn't do that, or who's calling the code compliance guy, things like that. I think that was a sense of, we want to see you guys another time, and know what's going on. And I take that as meaning that you can't just drift away. What did the state say? What Mr. Keats said? And that's what we're doing here tonight. We don't think it requires anything more than this. Show you what we've done, where we are, and that's why we're here.
How do you feel that with additional size, especially roof size, there's been more impact on the drainage?
That's more of your point. I'm glad I brought this guy in.
Me? Yes. So Catherine, obviously if you had more impervious area, there's an effect on the drainage, and there is an effect. The systems were designed with a slightly over-designed. It never comes out quite exactly right. So in looking at this, when Kevin was looking at, well, I need to have a bigger footprint, he came to me and said, what would the drainage system allow for, as it is, without changing the design? So we ran the numbers, and we didn't take exactly the 1,500 square feet. Originally, we'd add a little bit more in there. The drainage patterns for this site go in 4 different directions, so the increase gets kind of spread out to different, I think there's 4 or 5 stormwater management basins on that site, each kind of handling different directions. So anyway, long story short, by the time we did all that, there wasn't, they still had the capacity to fit that in.
Okay, thank you. And also, so I'm hearing from one of your butters that there is an effect on the runoff currently to his property.
Would you be talking about Mr. Wadley?
Yes.
Yep. So we met with Mr. Wadley before we even started the design process, Kevin and I did, and we looked at what his issues are with the drainage. We've had a very difficult time pinpointing what that issue is. So after the last zoning board meeting, I talked to Mr. Wadley again after the meeting, and I said, you're continuing to bring up that issue. I want to see what it is, because, you know, my job is solving problems. And if there's a problem I want to solve, I certainly don't want School Street flooded out or whatnot. And so we're trying to set up a date to go look at this problem, but he's currently unavailable.
So you're working with him to try to resolve the issues?
If I can find what it is, but Catherine, I've already looked at it with him, could not get it pinpointed what it is. I'll continue looking at it with him ad nauseum until he can show me what it is, and if we can fix it, we'll fix it. But I don't know what it is.
I appreciate that.
Question, does he have any pictures? Because I was there, I heard him talking, and there's nothing visual.
But I'll go walk it again with him. He said he'd be back, wasn't this week, wasn't next week, but I think the following week he's gonna call me, and we're gonna try to set up a visit.
I walked it with him too and expressed the same thing. I mean, if there's concerns as an abutter, as a neighbor, you know, I want to do the right thing as well. So again, you know, I walked it with him, I walked it with Kent and him, I walked it with Kent, trying to figure out what it is, and it really wasn't pinpointed exactly, you know, where what we're doing is causing issues. So because of that, you know, we're relying on the, you know, the plans that were done by Kent, the review that was done by DES and the AOT permits and all that stuff, and as well as, yeah, as the town engineer reviewing, making sure that they're both in compliance. So, you know, that's what we have to rely on, is the professionals that, you know, are trained in understanding where water goes, how it runs off, how it reinfiltrates.
But the short answer is no.
Thank you.
Do we,
I think you could, you know, it's like, kind of like a change of use review, as Attorney McCormick said, you could make a motion to either require further site plan review or not require further site plan review.
there's one gentleman in the back that might be the public.
Yeah, he's a troublemaker. I don't know, I wouldn't let him.
He's chomping at the bit because he's ready to stay employed and.
No, I just didn't know, do I need to open it up for public comment?
You could offer.
All right, I'll open it up the floor for public comment.
I think this is a
great idea.
Countered by, no.
I'm not looking to counter anything. I'm sure it's going to be very nice. I was there when Mr. Wadley said there was a problem on his property, and I do hear them saying that they can't ascertain what the problem is. Now, if all these houses get built and the drainage, as they laid it out, is not adequate, then what happens?
They have posted a, I'm just going to call it a bond.
Yeah.
That's where I was going. They said it's some kind
So you
of
have to be correct.
performance bond to correct it in case there's a problem.
Be the most bond,
There's a bond, there's a
An
bond.
obvious problem.
which might be about this, right?
But I'm hearing that you're going to pursue trying to work with him.
And he was in town today because I was talking to him. I don't know, he might be unavailable, but he's in town.
He voted. I saw him.
You might be out of town again, you never know.
He might be out of town again, there you go.
No.
All right, any other further public comment? No, hearing none, I'll close it to the public. Any discussion amongst the board? Any further discussion amongst the board? So,
So,
is there a motion?
yes.
I'll make a motion, but I'm not sure I can talk at this point.
All right, go for it.
I'll make a motion to, what, not have a site plan?
Not
Okay.
require additional site.
Require additional site plan for
No.
case number
1802.
1802.
Second.
Seconded by her,
That's Jules.
Jules. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify your vote by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Go forth and vote.
Just if we.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I do have a present here. We have the Mylar, actually. One of the requirements of my financing is to get it signed, so with everything approved now, please put it
Guy wants us to sign his Mylar? Thank you.
I wasn't told I
No
had to sign anything
presents?
tonight.
Oh, really?
No presents?
No presents.
I saw the shape.
Thanks to everybody. Thanks
So the one night I had to
Yeah.
leave here.
volunteers. I've been there myself.
Celebrate tonight?
You're the secretary.
I think 2 people sign it usually, but I didn't sign it.
So I have to sign this tonight?
Oh, actually, I mean, I think our plan would be to have Judy sign it. I mean.
Excuse my comment, I have a bank looking to close a loan, and this would be recorded as something pivotal to
He
that.
is the acting chair
He is the
tonight.
acting
Yeah,
chair.
okay.
Yeah.
Then if you guys are okay with it, I'm fine with it.
You're on the right of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Judy was
We're on the right.
good for and probably would.
Sure. I got arrested, I guess it's not so bad.
Is that a pen acceptable to the registry? Okay.
It's a Sharpie thing.
All right, beautiful.
I got a green one.
I don't know. I'm pretty tired.
You want a new house as a present? Jules wants a new house as a present.
How much are they? Going to be?
The driveway signs are right over than this. I don't understand where the water's. I can't even imagine.
Oh, like where his pen is, meaning? No, I don't think so. I think because there's a line.
Oh, I see, you're right.
And then I don't know what we're gonna put. We always have this line where we don't know what to write.
Yeah.
That's what I told somebody, they were complaining about it. And I said, well, I'll tell you this, you wouldn't be able to afford it, it costs more than your house.
I might be able to do it tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
This is the overall, this is.
It's nice to get out of here for a few.
They've looked at
Yes. No, it's not Denmark.
Sharpie?
All right.
The road is flat. The driveway is the garage like this.
Is this guy, this is,
All the way down on the right.
if this is where the new development is,
Yeah,
this
he's
is
right there.
he's right here.
He's right there.
I know, because his driveway goes down
It's toward the garage,
toward the garage.
but the road is flat. There's no,
Well,
there's
this
no.
is flat, but so,
His
because.
driveway is
Right.
flat.
What's your lunch spot like?
Where's
The lunch spot.
Where they should have pitched, it's the driveway, it's not.
I said, how long have you lived there?
Hot air on that, Catherine, quick, hot air on that.
The version's already.
Hot air.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Eric, can you sign this one?
Wait,
A long night, don't
we
it?
only have one Sharpie there. So,
Do you want to, I don't think they need any more signed, actually. Or,
That should be one for the man.
Oh, just the one? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, are they all the same?
actually, no, there are two. There are two sheets. Yeah.
There's this one, and then there's the overview of the whole property.
Just care about that, I just care about that show the loss.
How is the development going?
Good.
I wouldn't take chances.
One of these investigation side.
Yeah. And then,
It's very difficult to find tomorrow, I'm sure.
might as well just sign them all.
They're there in force and it's really good. Yeah,
Oh, good.
There's two, but it would be nice if we could have a couple signed paper for the, that we could fold up and put in the case file, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Oh, wait, what? Sorry?
She didn't sign.
Oh, okay.
He does give a very good presentation. Didn't he? Yeah. He said he was gonna be bored, but I wasn't bored at all. No, I like that kind of stuff.
Okay, so that's everything.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Pappas, Molly,
All right.
Kelly.
Well, can we get these signed actually, guys? So I
And
can-
Edwards, everybody understand that?
There was only three, so.
Well, I'm surprised Molly Kelly won.
Chuck,
Um,
I'm not surprised she made it. She was a state senator.
Stan got more votes than John. Stan,
Yeah, there's this.
Let's read the minutes if you want.
Let's do it.
I know, and,
Later.
more than I thought she did.
So
But,
like,
I'm
Sure,
not
it's a
saying,
long day, we're almost,
5.5 to done, 5.5.
Dennis will be open than John Olmsted.
still time, man, good, double time.
Good.
Kettle had
You gotta have
we
sandwich.
get a beer out.
That Ed Sanders.
Well, that's, okay, I thought that was close.
No, that I don't have a toast.
Probably, yeah.
You have to go to, I love sandwich. We love sandwich.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm on that side.
All right, thank you, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Congratulations.
Eric, let's do the
Thanks,
minutes.
Dale. Congratulations.
How come Kettlehead's not here?
See you guys.
Partying?
Are they having
Maybe
a
they're
party?
getting drunk.
Probably. No, they close at 9.
Oh, election party,
I
maybe.
have to assume we're not needing it.
My son is wondering
All
where I
right.
am.
Yeah.
Me too.
We've got
I'm
Kettlehead.
wondering where I am.
What's up?
I'm wondering where I am.
All right, we're
So
gonna
all
finish
it's
this
left
meeting.
is the minutes, right?
What's that?
The minute?
We've got the Kettlehead plan ready to sign. If you guys are just done for the night, they're not banging down my door to get that over, to
You know
get
what?
that back.
Let's just get it done and over with.
You want to do it? Okay.
But wait, all right, I'm just gonna do the minutes, but
Oh, what?
I'm just gonna do minutes, because I found one error.
Okay. So are we on the first batch, June 26th?
I don't know. I saw the error now.
Yeah, the first batch I make a motion to approve is written.
Okay.
Second.
Hold on. Any discussion?
Yeah, minutes of June 26th, right?
Yeah.
On the third page, they're describing a small bedroom in the cold storage building.
Hmm? Where is this?
Oh yeah, with a small bedroom in mine, I think that's supposed to be bathroom.
It's supposed to be bathroom, definitely. I can't find it.
Thank you.
Page 3,
My page 3
1, 2, 3,
says
4
there,
lines up from the bottom.
indicating that it's cold storage fills present with a small bedroom and minor utilities.
Okay, that's definitely bathroom, yeah. Thank you.
Huh.
All right,
Next
What
thing
was
you
on
know,
the mind?
okay,
I have, I think this is the one.
Mr. Dembitsky, I'll fix
Maybe it's
that.
this one.
I have a question.
I read these too long ago.
Was I at this meeting?
Oh boy. Why are you,
Well, I'm not quoted in this one, so I was quiet.
it doesn't list you as an attendee.
I know that. But either this or the next one, and I'm listed as making comments and seconding things, so,
But you're not listed as an attendee.
correct.
I'll say double check attendees.
Yeah.
I probably have text messages and emails from you that can
26.
confirm where you were and not.
Oh, you know what? I know I wasn't here. I was in Cleveland.
Okay, so we won't worry about that one as far as that goes. Okay.
So I guess, make a motion to approve the minutes of June 26th as amended, corrected,
Okay.
seconded by Jules. All those, any discussion? Favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just grammatically on page 4, AOT, DOT is all capitalized, but AOT is not. Is that how they abbreviate it with a small o?
Oh, yeah,
Operation
I'm
terrain.
commonly,
Okay.
I see it done that way a lot, yeah.
Okay.
It seems familiar.
But you're right, they're both the same word, they're both of,
They're
right?
both of, but I think like you, I think I've seen it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that passed. No one opposed.
Okay.
Minutes of July 10th. Look forward for discussion. I believe I showed up late to this meeting. Or maybe I
Okay.
was here. I don't know, I seconded two things, so.
Okay, so there is a meeting where you did come in late recently, so,
That one I seem to think I came in at 6:15 before the meeting.
oh, really, okay, so you were involved in motions,
Yeah,
so that proves that you were there, so I'll just add you as an attendee.
Right. Either that, or you're just thinking of me when you're typing. Anyone else have any comments?
So, in this discussion of the Kettlehead parking, I thought with, and I'm sorry, the meetings run and confuse me, but didn't we have the president of the condominium unit there? Concerned about parking along Deer Street?
Is that Robert?
Oh, it's the last paragraph. Chairman Tilton asked if anyone from the public wished to comment. Mr. Conklin expressed that there are presently significant parking issues. He also expressed concern regarding the location of snow storage and accessible spaces.
Right, so, but wasn't there some pretty specific concerns, and were there conclusions to those concerns? I thought we discussed about, and maybe it doesn't matter.
My guess, because this is maybe, if I feel that things are addressed elsewhere in the minutes, they don't become as important to capture. Something like this, if the next paragraph being the motion, perhaps, it was discussion about things that wound up becoming conditions of approval. I mean, I can't say, like you said this a while ago, they kind of bleed together. I can either, if you guys want, you could hold off on approving these, and I could go back and listen to that section some more and see if it should be
I don't know if it's
expanded.
critical to the approval. I
Yeah.
guess that's what I'm asking.
I
I'm
think
sorry,
we
I'm
had,
tired.
you're right though, we had a lengthy discussion about whose place he wanted us to really address the parking on the street, and then we talked about who should be doing that, and
I think that was a previous meeting.
It was a previous
That's
meeting.
my problem.
I
okay.
Yeah,
I was here for that discussion.
yeah,
I was not at this meeting.
yeah,
So it was
okay,
a
so that's.
previous meeting.
So it wasn't previous.
Good
Okay,
catch.
that was my first
Gotcha.
question.
Okay.
Okay, that's
All
what
right.
I,
Thank you.
Thank you.
so,
So we
I should
we
say-
will hold off on approving.
No, I think because,
No.
now we- yeah.
All right,
Jane just clarified it. Thank you,
Okay.
Jane.
take a motion from someone.
I'll make a motion to approve the discussion.
July 12th, 10th,
Yeah.
second,
second, discussion. Vote. Anyone in favor?
Yes.
yes.
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining?
Well, I'm abstaining.
Denied? Rejections? Whatever. Any-
Motion to adjourn.
I guess
Are we
that passes.
dealing with Kettlehead?
We're doing the final plan.
Okay, so, Kettlehead, we have their final plan, their conditions of approval were relatively straightforward.
Sorry.
We'll see if I can find them in this pile of stuff.
The record meeting.
William Coulter.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Public,
Thanks
for
for
coming.
Thank you.
Stick around, get her in.
Ex officio now.
Well, today you were the public.
And I was a public. I'm like a split personality.
That's why you're wearing a hat today.
Say what?
Why you're wearing a hat today.
Actually, it was cold when I left the house early this morning, so that's
Oh,
why I'm wearing a
we
hat.
got- do we
Hey, pal, no hair.
Look at this.
Enjoy.
Got bad haircut. Do we have something to review?
Sure, yeah.
Look at the record show us 10 of 10. Oh, wow, look at that.
Let the record show, this has been a record-long meeting.
Yeah.
So.
We got out at 11 one time, remember?
No.
I've never had a meeting where the applicant
Let's
was
get-
part of our discussion. Like tonight.
Oh, right.
I tried. All right. So, do we have the list of conditions on this one, or is there anything else that we had to add? Still, it looks so crooked.
Signage serving to prohibit roadside parking shall be placed along the fence running parallel to Deer Street.
Okay, I see
The
it.
fence on the north side of the property shall be relocated to coincide with the property line, allowing for snow storage in that vicinity.
Okay, I see
Two
that.
ADA compliant parking spaces shall be added, including one van accessible space.
I see that.
And fire department approval must be obtained. I can confirm that that has happened. And I'll get you a pen just in case you wish to use it.
I have one.
Oh, well, it has to be official.
Oh, I thought this was one.
That was a Sharpie.
We got a Sharpie here.
Oh, if you want to use, oh, is that the one you used?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. Oh, great.
Sorry. My name's going down in history.
Hope your signature's more legible than his.
Okay.
E-Pie.
You sound like my mother.
E-Pie.
Papa.
Mom, if you're listening, my signature's
You
horrible.
need to let voice in cursive.
Modified
Just
cursive.
like all the kids.
All right. Any other business to come before this board?
Let's go for breakfast.
Here none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
To
moved.
adjourn.
I second that.
Second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bye. Have a nice day. Hold the phone.
Oh, wow. Go off. Nice job, you guys.
That was kind of brutal.
That was momentous.